orders of the mayor's own talented OEH judges. Allow me to close by warning other citizens who may have had similar unfortunate dealings with DOB or other agencies that these folks work for the citizens, not vice versa. All DC government lawyers are supposed to provide guidance counseling to their client government managers, not just blindly and cynically defend these managers in every legal dispute to the last drop of DC's and our financial resources. It is one thing for a citizen to seek resolution on a legal matter with the city. It is quite another to confront twisted legal gamesmanship, a clear, mindless wasting of DC finances and staffing in fighting for lost causes against its own residents, and to use time to delay simple, clear-cut, neighborly replies to citizens' concerns as a matter of prudent and open governmental management. Over the last several years, I have sensed inside the DC government, I'm sad to say, perhaps a possible shift to suppressing and deflecting and maybe even crushing legitimate citizen concerns and cases. In fact, we may have reached a point where I feel some of the city's lawyers may feel they are untethered from any true accountability to the citizens, that they are somehow Teflon, only working at all costs for a DC government as an aggressive corporation, which I believe in many cases with your counsel, Ms. Bonds, it is certainly not, but on immune autopilot, unrestrained and seeking 100% deference and even seeking silence from judges when citizens appeal DC government actions, all apart from the taxpayers and the electorate's accountability. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony, and we will be examining that a little further.
Thank you.
Next, we'll hear from Ms. Ramirez. Is she on?
Councilmember Bonds, thank you for the opportunity to testify today. My name is Tatiana Figueroa Ramirez, and I am the Senior Program Director, Poetry and Community Arts at DC Scores. For 30 years, DC Scores has served thousands of young people in the district through our school-based whole child youth development after-school program that combines soccer, poetry, and service learning. We currently partner with 68 public elementary and middle schools, reaching more than 3,500 students each year. DC Scores empowers youth to lead healthy lives, be engaged students, and have the confidence and character to make a difference in the world. Our poet athletes meet after school 3 to 5 days a week for physical activity, soccer, creative expression, poetry, and community leadership service learning. Each team includes about 32 students and is led by coaches, 90% of whom are school teachers and staff who we hire, pay, and train, and provide all the supplies and equipment to run a high-quality program in their building at no cost to the school. In 2025, we were extremely grateful for the support of the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs. The Mayor's Office of Latino Affairs has funded and championed our work with Latinx communities across the city for many years. Every year, MOLA funding helps us provide program resources in Spanish so that no Latinx family is prevented from fully engaging with DC Scores. We also receive support from the Mayor's Office of African American Affairs, which championed our work with African American communities across the city, particularly east of the river. In fact, the DC Scores team at Lecky Education Campus was awarded first place at the Middle School Poetry Slam for their original poem last year, which highlighted the team's pride in their school community and Ward 8 roots. We are also extremely grateful for the many MOLA and MOA staff who show up for kids throughout the year, snapping it up at our poetry slams, cheering them on at soccer events, and celebrating our coaches at our annual award ceremony. I cannot overstate the impact of this support. Allow me to expand on the difference the support makes at one of our middle schools, Ward 8's Lecky Education Campus. Lecky officially joined the DC Scores program in 2013, and since then, the school has expanded the program to include students in 1st through 8th grade. Lecky parents have children enrolled in every level of the DC Scores program, providing kids with a safe space and learning opportunities after school. As Curtis Jordan, a Lecky DC Scores coach, puts it, it's been very impactful the amount of kids we've reached and to watch the consistency of the program, he says. One thing about our school here, it's a family. At Lecky, our poet athletes show their Ward 8 pride on the field, stage, and in their communities. For years, Lecky poet athletes used the DC Scores service learning curriculum to support Lecky's Closet, a school initiative that provides clothing to families in the school community. Last year, after winning first place at the Middle School Poetry Slam, Lucky designed their very own soccer jerseys that showcase their love for their school and neighborhood, the same theme they explored in their winning Poetry Slam performance. Community pride is the theme woven throughout the entire DC Scores program. At Bancroft Elementary, our poet athletes write in Spanish, sharing poetry that celebrates their stories, home cultures, and diversity of experiences. At these schools, DC Scores is a safe haven for newly arrived immigrant families looking for ways to connect with their school and DC community. Thanks to our partnership with the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, DC Scores has been able to support and celebrate our poet athletes and their families across the city. DC Scores teams are integrating Spanish into their practices and poetry, and we've expanded our program to reach more kids east of the river. Perhaps the best way to demonstrate the impact of this support is through a poetry of DC Scores poet athletes at Bancroft Elementary School. This is a group poem from Bancroft Elementary School, excerpt from De Donde Vengo Yo. Países de Latinoamérica, de donde vengo yo, nos hacen vibrar de alegría y emoción. Eso siento cuando de bachata escucho una canción. Guatemala, de donde vengo yo. Entre volcanes el alma despertó, el maíz y el quetzal guardan la tradición, y en cada canto vive el corazón. Colombia, de donde vengo yo. Montañas, café y tambor en flor. De norte a sur suena una canción, de gente alegre y gran corazón. Siento orgullo, siento pasión, siento esperanza, porque sé de dónde vengo yo. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your very moving testimony. Thank you. And now we will hear all right. Ms. Edelman, would you accept so we can get you on our Zoom? All right. Okay, we see you, and I think you're on now.
Good morning, Chair Bonds and members of the Committee of Executive Administration and Labor. I am Miriam Edelman, a commissioner of the DC Commission on Persons with Disabilities. The views of this testimony are my own. I'm a native Washingtonian. I am testifying about my strong desire that DC's government create and implement hiring preferences for people with disabilities. People with disabilities face barriers to employment. The barriers include discrimination, accessibility challenges, income and asset limits for public benefits, and transit difficulties. Employment is associated with the following benefits for people with disabilities: an improved quality of life, higher incomes, more self-confidence, an expanded social network, and an increased sense of community. Prolonged unemployment can cause preventable mental health problems and suicides. The article entitled New Findings on Gender, the Effects of Employment Status on Suicide said the disabled and those unable to work were nearly 2.5 times more likely to have higher suicide deaths than the employed. Nationally and in DC, people with disabilities face adverse employment outcomes. In the US, in April 2025, people with disabilities have more than double the unemployment rate than individuals without disabilities. It was 8.2% compared to 3.5%. In DC, people with disabilities also have problems securing work. As of 2020, while people with disabilities have a 30.1% employment rate, people without disabilities have a 75.5% employment rate. On average, people with disabilities earn $11,244 less than people without disabilities, marking the sixth largest gap in the nation. As of 2022, while 83% of people with disabilities did not work, the equivalent percent of people without disabilities was 34%. Some percent regarding people with disability vary depending on type of disability. DC already does much for people with disabilities. It conducts employment first activities, held a disability career fair, hires people with disabilities, and more, as the District of Columbia is committed to becoming a model employer of people with disabilities. It could do even more. Republican and Democratic leading areas have hiring preferences for people with disabilities. They include Baltimore, Maryland, Montgomery County, Maryland, and Fairfax County, Virginia. Since Colorado's disability hiring preference pilot program was successful, Colorado is expanding this initiative. The DC government already has hiring preferences regarding residency, veterans, and foster care youth employment. It could do more. The DC Developmental Disabilities Council calls for a preferential hiring program. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Do we have others? All right, we'll just go with this panel. And Ms. Edelman, are you suggesting that the Disabilities Council is asking that the DC government put in place a preferential hiring program for persons with disabilities?
Yes, the DC Developmental Disability Council has gone on record calling for such a program.
All right, okay. And in thinking about the implementation of that provision, has the Disabilities Council also identified job titles or types of jobs that would be appropriate?
I am not sure off the top of my head. I can find out, but I can say that what I would think is the hiring preferences program should apply to all jobs of DC's other hiring preferences programs.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And we will ask these questions of DC HR, the Human Resources Office, and also share your requests with the Human Rights Office as well. Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Ms. Ramirez, thank you very much for this glowing report of results. Thank you so much. I did want to inquire, how many teams do you have? And am I to assume that there is a coach for each team?
Yes. So the way that our structure works is we're across 68 different schools. Some of those schools, particularly in the elementary school realm, have our junior scores programming, which is 1st through 2nd grade, as well as our core elementary scores programming, which is 3rd through 5th grade. So those schools that have both programs have essentially 3 teams, because our junior scores is co-ed and our elementary is divided into 2 teams. So we have roughly about 100 teams across all of our schools. And the way that our coaching structure is for our poetry and service learning programming, we have 2 coaches. And for our soccer programming, we have 2 coaches. And then we have 1 liaison who just serves as an administrative liaison, supporting with logistics and communications between DC Scores staff, families, and the poet athletes at the schools. So across all of our schools, we have roughly between 250 and 300 coaches and liaisons staffed, which, like I mentioned, about 90% of those are working within the schools that we're serving.
All right, well, thank you for that. Now, you mentioned that you're in Ward 8 at Leckie and then Bancroft Ward 1 schools. Is that sort of like your base of activity, or because you just shared you're in 68 different schools? So am I, okay, all right. So those are sort of like your home base where you.
Well, we're across all wards with the exception of 1. And we don't necessarily have a home base. athletes. But what might look a little bit different is year to year we have summer programming, and the location of our summer programming changes. So years past, we've had summer camp at Lecky. Last year we had it at LaSalle. So we also tried to move our summer camps around to provide more equity and accessibility for our POA athletes in the summertime.
All right, but what you presented to us was poetry done by, you said at Bancroft Elementary, our poet athletes write in Spanish. So Bancroft, is it in Ward 1 or is it in another ward now?
No, yes, you're correct.
Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure.
Yeah,
All
yeah,
right,
we just
okay.
wanted to highlight two of our schools. Yep.
Okay, Ward 1 and Ward 8. Okay. Now, you also indicated you provide support to families. What does that mean? I'm assuming the families of the young people that participate in scores. Tell us a little bit about the support that goes to the families.
Yes, absolutely. So that primarily comes through our programming. So, for example, if there is a transportation need to go to an event, then we, for example, for our game days, for our fall frenzies, for our poetry slams, we provide all transportation for the families, for the students, excuse me. And then at those events, we have resources for the families. So, for example, at our fall frenzy, we have community organizations come to Fall Frenzy and table, provide free resources to our families in different languages as well, so that it's accessible for them. We also have enhanced programming that provides additional opportunities to the poet athletes and their families. So a really fun one is being able to go to DC United and Washington Spirit games for free with transportation provided as well.
All right, and when you speak of resources, transportation with resources, what are we talking about? Are we speaking of lunch on the bus, or what are we talking about?
So we have we provide free busing to those events for our poet athletes, and then for our enhanced programming, depending on how large the cohort of students that are going to be going there, because funding is a factor with the resources that we could provide. We provide private transportation and travel stipends as well. For these events, like these large-scale poetry slam and fall frenzy events, we provide reimbursements and on-site lunch for families and poet athletes.
All right, and so when you say reimbursements, are you speaking of transportation stipends or some other reimbursement?
So those are two separate things. So we do have travel stipends for our enhanced programming that we factor in on a case-by-case basis. And then the food reimbursements is, for example, if a team is going to be traveling to Poetry Slam, we reimburse the coaches to provide food for the poet athletes team and the team prior to going to that event.
All right, I guess then I can assume that the two offices within the EOM that you mentioned provide funding, the African American Affairs Office and the Mayor's Office of, let's see,
Of Latino Affairs.
yes, of Latino Affairs. You are speaking of, you are one of their grantees, am I correct?
Yes, we've received funding for them, correct.
All right, and what is the level of funding that you receive from Office of Latino Affairs?
I'm not sure of the specific number in the most recent year. However, I know in the past it's been anywhere between 10 to 15,000.
Okay. And the African American Affairs?
Similar, yes.
Okay, similar, okay. As you know, we consolidated those grant-making opportunities. And
Yes.
do you have any concerns or tribulations about what it might mean for your organization? looking at this
Yeah.
year's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think across the board, with all of the different funding opportunities that have shifted, changed, and sometimes shrunk, particularly on the arts side, because we are also an arts organization. All of this is, we're confident in the team that we have and the leadership that is guiding us in terms of our budget and being as fiscally responsible as possible. However, it is definitely making us double think is, where can we save a little bit? What other opportunities are there for our poet athletes? What space is there for collaboration so that different organizations who are doing similar work and have a similar mission, we are, rather than competing with each other, working with each other, because at the end of the day, the goal is to support our youth and support our communities. We're not trying to be greedy and vie for, the most amount of money. We just want to be able to provide the best quality programming. So it definitely is making us rethink some strategy, just so that we can be proactive rather than reactive. However, right now we are confident in the work that we're doing as a team.
I appreciate that. And as you're thinking about collaboration, it seems to me that our Department of Parks and Recreation would welcome your program. And I hope that you can explore some opportunities for funding there this year. Also, the after-school grants that we do. Most likely soccer happens after school. So please make sure that that office also hears from you. I think it would be very worthwhile. Any group that can, as you said, 68 schools. The teams are 32 students. That's amazing. If we just do the math, you know what numbers we come up with. And I think these are the kinds of programs that we definitely want to support. And let me understand, the support that you give is support to the families primarily. Am I correct?
The support is primarily for the students.
Oh,
and
okay.
who are participating in the program. And then by way of the programming with the students, those families also receive some of those resources as well. But
All
our
right.
bread and butter is the free after school high quality programming.
Okay. All right. Well, I look forward to hearing more about how you are collaborating within our government, and let me know if there's anything that you think we can do to keep the program moving forward. And thank you very much
Thank you.
for your information today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Malif, I hear you 100%. What I don't understand is exactly what is your issue. You've indicated that you want to make sure that the government lawyers are doing their job, and you're particularly concerned with, if I'm not mistaken, a court ruling for the Office of Administrative Hearings. Can you shed a little more light on that so we understand what's going on?
Well, ma'am, I've testified before you, before you and I were in the hearing last Friday. I have some comments on that. Without getting into all of the dirty laundry with the agency, suffice it to say, the judges twice ordered that my wife and I receive the detailed resolution report in one package that was promised twice on the official forms that we received when we were notified that dangerous construction would occur, castrating our foundation, attaching more load to our walls, and attaching new weight above next door that my walls were expected to support. Very basic questions were asked, like who is doing the digging, What materials will they use? How deep will they dig? What materials like rotting wood will they leave under my home when they reach into my property? What are their skills? They said they've done work before. What projects have they completed? Very basic questions. The agency fought us tooth and nail with non-responsiveness for 3 years. We filed 2 different appeals because 2 permits were issued. Suffice it to say, the classic excuse was, we can't talk to you because now you've appealed to OAH. Well, those appeals are over, ma'am. We have 3 orders. The judge ordered we get our report. The judge ordered that the soil report, very critical of the condition of the soil, where this Frankenstein replacement surgery of our foundation would occur, should be disclosed. DOB to this day has not released the report. It sounds like Talbert Street. Did they ever find the soil report for Talbert Street that sunk with 30 houses? I'm not so sure. And now we have a stadium on a floodplain, a 100-year floodplain, and DOB's responsible for it. I think DC might even own the foundation of the stadium. And you know, these soil reports need to be scrutinized and delivered to the affected neighbors. So in the second decision also that we received 70 days ago, I kept my mouth shut. I wanted my second decision from the second judge. He came in a sterling fashion and again reaffirmed for the upper floors that we didn't get our questions answered. And in fact, we are suffering damage from our property, which I won't get into, that DOB is totally silent on. All I can say is this: it's been 70 days since the second decision, and now it's been 3 years with the first decision. I've got everything I need that requires MOLC, I think, now to step in. The cases are over. DOB needs to comply with the answers to our questions and rectifying our damage situation. So I'm sorry to make this a personal issue, but I've done this before as Federation leader for a short time. We've talked about finances and everything else. There are implications here. If this kind of behavior is going on with other agencies, I am very frightened. And I've gotten some wind that maybe people don't, in the legal departments at the agencies, don't respect OAH very much. So every time I called OAH, they would say, "What's your infraction number?" I said, "Well, no, I didn't infract anything." You know, the DOB's used to going to OAH asking for more resources to levy fines on people. I had to say to the clerk's office a couple of times. It was kind of a funny exchange. I didn't infract. DOB infracted. I've got a case against DOB, and the agency couldn't believe it. So this is, I think, a case in point that every citizen who feels maybe they didn't get a fair hearing from an agency needs to think about. They're not immune. They must speak to the citizens, especially when there's injury involved. I mean, we're healthy here. What about when people get bodily harmed? Okay, the city needs to step up when their condos sink into the ground, as with Talbert Street. That shouldn't go on for 4 or 5 years. So I'm a little bit of a canary in the coal mine, I think, and I'm blessed that our house hasn't suffered damage other than on the top floor that needs to be addressed. And I wake up every day knowing that added load was placed upon my home. And there are a bunch of walking wounded around this town who've had their homes decimated with damage. I at least wake up and say, well, you know, the walls are still here today. I know what load they attached, and the evidence with my other neighbors that have testified is very severe, where they've got cracked life savings walls on their homes. I'm sorry to have gone on so long, but this is non-trivial. Thank you.
Thank you very much for putting on the record the situation. We needed that. We have Attorney Edwards in the meeting today, and I'm sure he will be very happy to give us some response to your complaint. Again, thank you to our public witnesses. Do we have?
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very
for
much.
everything you do.
Thank you. Now we will, that's it. All right. Okay, we will now pivot to our government witnesses. And of course, we have the honor of beginning with the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel. And then we'll follow with the Office of Employee Appeals and then the Department of Human Resources. So the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel provides legal advice and support to the mayor and her staff, including the general counsel offices of individual agencies. Additional duties include, but are not limited to, interfacing with the Office of the Attorney General on litigation matters and other issues, working closely with the Office of Risk Management to reduce avoidable operational, legal, and financial exposure for the district government, resolving interagency legal issues on behalf of the mayor, and overseeing the representation of agencies in investigative matters before the executive branch of the federal government, Congress, and the council of the district. Supervising outside counsel in matters where the Office of the Attorney General is recused from a matter or is otherwise not available, and coordinating the hiring, compensation, and training of agency counsel and general counsel offices. So with that, I'm welcoming the head of the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel, Attorney Edwards. And if you raise your right hand, we will swear you in. All right. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements made before us today to be correct and complete? Thank you very much. And we look forward to hearing from you. The office also adjudicates administrative appeals of Freedom of Information Act decisions made by district government agencies and tracks reported allegations of sexual harassment claims made by city employees. So with that, we will receive Mr. Edwards' testimony, and then, as you can tell from our public witness inquiry, we have some other questions. So please proceed, sir.
Understood, Madam Chair, and thank you for having me this morning. I'm here again on behalf of the Mayor's Office of Legal Counsel to again discuss the status of the office, our accomplishments and challenges over the last year to date, and of course to answer any questions or address any issues that you or the committee may have. But before I begin my formal comments, Madam Chair, please allow me to thank you personally and professionally for your extraordinary service to our city government, city residents, and visitors. Your leadership, your vision, and support has contributed to all our individual and collective successes and achievements. It's been my honor to know you and work with you, and I wish you all the best in your next chapter. But turning now to the MOLC's performance, Madam Chair, you may recall that in last year's testimony, I spoke about our plan to focus more on internal operations than in years past. I mentioned the significant turnover in agency counsel offices. We lost a number of experienced senior general counsels last year, and that dearth of experience led us to realize that we needed to do more training and information sharing than we had in previous years, and we had to figure out an effective way to do it. And this was just to ensure that agency heads, the senior staffs and their employees got maximum support and appropriate legal advice that was consistent, coordinated, and current. And we began that task shortly after my last testimony, but quickly had to pivot in January of 2025. As you may recall, the administration changed in the White House, and so some of the policy and legal shifts made at the federal level that came with that change in administrations required us to use significant energy and resources to stay abreast of sudden, and in some cases, very, very dramatic changes that impacted our government and city residents. This refocus required us to analyze and interpret different applications of the law or policy so we could better advise on how to proceed when leaders and agencies sought that guidance. And all these changes, as you know, Madam Chair, had a direct and indirect effect on our local government through the unprecedented downsizing of the federal government, the city's budget drama for fiscal year 25. There was occasioned by real and threatened funding stoppages, the status of immigrants in our city, and on certain social service benefits and entitlements. MOLC stayed up on top of all these issues and prepared to advise on them as the need arose so that city leaders could make their best decisions about how to navigate this new terrain. You'll also recall that last year, the city government finalized a deal for a new Commander Stadium on the old RFK site, endured challenges to home rule, and survived the second longest federal government shutdown in history. The MOCA was involved in some way, shape, or form in all of these events and activities, either by analyzing questions and issues or by offering advice when needed or asked for. And as those foregoing responsibilities I just mentioned became our new normal, the president's surge began last August. And this was a 30-day takeover of the Metropolitan Police Department because of a perceived crime problem, followed by the installation of our own National Guard and members from other jurisdictions. The debates about their role and responsibilities, as well as their tenure, are ongoing today. More recently, efforts by the federal government on immigration-related matters in the city have required ongoing review of the interactions between federal immigration enforcement officials and the Metropolitan Police Department. It's a process and a relationship that remains fluid, uneasy sometimes, but always requires our regular attention. And so all of these matters have also required the MOLC to regularly communicate with the city's office of the Attorney General about the defensive and affirmative litigation that affects the city. In those discussions, MOLC weighs in on the feasibility of certain courses of action, conveys the mayor's wishes in those situations, and discusses the policy and operational implications of each as well. And I'm happy to say that, Madam Chair, notwithstanding disagreements, that the process was a successful one. And lines of communication remained open even when we disagreed, and the discourse was always collegial and friendly. And these matters, meaning our MOLC's interactions with the city's office of the Attorney General, have also been ongoing to date and will become even more sensitized as the country prepares for its 250th birthday this summer. Just a few weeks after the most impactful local election we've had in recent memory. The birthday celebration will, of course, be centralized here in the district and require all parts of our government to work in concert. The MOLC's portfolio over the next 6 months will likely expand to include some responsibility that relates to the preparations for the 250 celebration. And all of this, Madam Chair, as exciting and as important as it is, has forced us to spread ourselves a little bit thinner, respond more to ad hoc questions and issues, while continuing to provide our core service and support. This has been easily managed thus far because of the MOLC's outstanding and committed team. My colleagues continue to do extraordinary work without complaint and with the flexibility and collegiality it often requires. Now, the amount of turnover in agency council offices that I mentioned last year has certainly slowed, but we felt it directly in the MOLC. 2 staffers gave significant amounts of time to other needy agencies through details lasting between 4 and 6 months. Another one of the lawyers recently became the general counsel for one of the mayor's subordinate agencies, while my colleagues are thinking about their futures in light of the mayor's recent decision not to seek re-election. But morale remains high, and we have not yet felt the pinch of doing more with less. All of us will continue to do our best to ensure that the council and our mayor run through the tape as they have committed to doing. So pivoting one more time, Madam Chair, and with your permission, I'd like to update you on one of your favorite subjects, and that is our FOIA responsibility. Again, thanks to the fantastic work of Sean Nolan and Andrea Stemple, I'm pleased to report that we're absolutely current on all of those obligations. In our responses to your oversight questions, Madam Chair, we've included a chart and an answer that tracks our FOIA responsibilities over the last 4 fiscal years. And I'm happy to report that we are completely current, and this includes the 995 cases available now in the DC Register and the 1,400 or so that are posted on our website. We will, of course, continue to keep you updated on a quarterly basis as you have requested. So thank you, Madam Chair. That concludes my testimony, and I'm happy to answer any questions or address any concerns you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Adams. I really appreciate your testimony. And I hear the strain of service requirements for your agency. And I'm just gonna shoot it straight to you. I wonder, as you have articulated the many needs, additional needs that have been placed on your agency, if you would consider doing something like maybe a temporary transfer of staff from other agencies that can work directly with the MOLC. Let's say for, we talk about 250th anniversary planning. That's going to take considerable time. You're already involved in our immigration issues, and just wondered if we have, and I know that we must, have talent in some of the other offices that are getting a little less pressure, that they can work more directly with you so that you can fill the gaps that you have. Or are you at a point where you need to actually do hiring of new or additional attorneys?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chair. I'm not sure. I think I'm comfortable saying that although we're not stretched to the breaking point yet. I have a remarkably skilled and talented staff that's fully committed to the work that we do, and coordinating our activities with the Office of the Attorney General, coordinating our activities with the agency counsel offices, including the lawyers that you just referenced. We reach out when we need help. They reach out when they need help. And our structure is fluid enough and flexible enough that we get the help that we need in sort of a real-time basis. So your suggestion about borrowing lawyers, we consider that on a regular basis, but we have to be very, very careful, because I don't want to steal resources from an agency that already may feel stretched by their own shortages. And so we're very, very careful about looking at that. So if we borrow talent and we borrow expertise and we borrow support, it's usually on a project by project basis rather than sort of for a blanket period of time, because I know they have responsibilities at their primary agencies. The two details that I mentioned were both in support of my staff, were both in support of the Commission on Judicial Disabilities and Tenure. And they had a real operational shortage that began sort of at the beginning of last summer. And actually, one of my administrative staffers, who's actually here today, Mr. McGinnis, was over there from February till the end of August. And another one of my lawyers actually went over there at the beginning of June and finished up in October. And, we were able to do it because the agency needed help and they specifically had asked for the help from the mayor, and we were happy to provide it. We are right now for the responsibilities, we're fine, quite honestly. We're busy, don't get me wrong, but we're not overwhelmed. And if that changes, I'll certainly reach out to you and Mr. Martell and certainly my colleagues in the agency council offices. There are roughly 140 lawyers or so that are spread out through the subordinate agencies that are under the mayor's supervision. And we call all of them colleagues and all of them friends.
Well, I certainly appreciate your response. And I know the value of your office, and I know the value of the information that flows in and out of your office. So I must say, I'm not convinced that you do not need additional help at this time.
And I appreciate that, Madam Chair. And to your other question, I apologize for not answering it directly. We have a couple of vacancies that still survive the budgets. And we are looking to fill those, but we want to be strategic about it so we can get the biggest bang for our buck, one, but also make sure that we are not hiring people who in less than a year from now may be out of jobs either. So it's trying to find that balance.
And, I understand that, and that is probably a consideration that employees across our government have.
Absolutely.
But our government is into perpetuity.
Agreed.
The leadership, comes and goes. And I hope that we will be thinking of our offices accordingly. You mentioned 2 or 3 major pressures. Clearly, the 250th committee celebration, national celebration in itself is one thing. And I would imagine we'll have to comment on where the art is placed, how tall it is, and all those good things. I would imagine there's been some weighing in on a couple of other projects of that type. I know that, August 23rd, we're going to have the NASCAR racing in our city.
Formula One cars.
Whatever that is. I don't know the difference, forgive me, but we'll have race cars. Oh, which ones are faster?
The Formula One car.
Oh, okay. Well, we're going to have fast vehicles. And let me just say this, that is very interesting. And I do hope that our city will be safe. I was just reading this morning about a senior who served on the Commission on Aging and how a few years ago she was struck by a car crossing the roadway. And she's finally passed away, which is certainly always unfortunate.
Absolutely.
But it just, hearing that they're going to go at top speed really does concern me. But anyway, I'm not in that, and that's not why we're here today. But I just really think about all of the levels of impact that your office has to have. And so that's why I'm making that suggestion. We'll see how we move forward with the budget. But it just seems to me that you may need a little extra help. And if you were to fill that position, it would make sense. Get as much bang for the buck as you can, but
Absolutely. Absolutely.
let's not, we only have today for today. Tomorrow will be a different day. Okay. So please, sir, think about it from that perspective. I did
Understood,
want,
Madam Chair.
Thank you. I did want to ask you about when you talk about the matters about the defensive and affirmative litigation that affects the city, are you also, is it the responsibility of your office to provide some defense for, like, the deputy mayor for public safety, the city administrator with the snow, and Homeland Security group? Tell me, what does that mean when you say you provide defense and affirmative litigation for these?
And what I meant to say, Madam Chair, was that in those situations, we work with the Office of the Attorney General to make very, very clear to both the mayor and the Office of the Attorney General what our rights and responsibilities are with respect to defensive litigation when the city is sued, or with respect to affirmative litigation when either the mayor wants to initiate some litigation, one of the agencies wants to initiate some litigation, or the Office of the Attorney General itself wants to do that. So, you know, and we had part of this discussion last year when I testified before you, and I made the comment that there has been, excuse me, an ongoing debate in certain situations about who is the client and who should be making the decisions about what lawsuits are filed, when lawsuits are settled, and when lawsuits should be defended. And it's an ongoing debate between this side of the executive and the Office of the Attorney General. And so it is a regular discussion we have with them. And sometimes, you know, they'll buy into our view of situations. Sometimes, you know, we'll understand their view of situations. But there needs to be a clarity that I quite honestly don't think exists yet about when and how the Office of the Attorney General, now with an elected Attorney General, has a responsibility to absolutely represent the mayor and the District of Columbia as a client. And that, as you know, kind of sometimes conflicts with their statutory responsibility to look into and uphold the public interest. And that's just part of the law now. And I've told you on a number of occasions, I would love to see some clarity in that. But you know, that's a decision ultimately for the mayor and the city council.
So, Mr. Edwards, I'm just wondering on that issue, which really does, I agree with you 100%. There needs to be clarity. I can only tell you as a voter in this community and what I thought I was voting for, as my neighbors can tell you what they thought they were voting for. My point is that it was the understanding of the population at that time that we were simply saying that the Attorney General would be an elected position. There was no rhyme or reason as to how we would get to that. The current situation was a determination made by the then sitting council. I wasn't on it, as you well know, but there's at least one member of the current council that was on it at the time. My thought is that you hit the nail on the head. We really do need some clarification. I recall in years past, we've had the Attorney General's office to decline to work on behalf of the government because they have the title independent. We also have expressions of independence by that office in other matters that flow from the operating side of our government. So I do hear you loud and clear. I just wonder if you have initiated some sort of working group with the Attorney General and with some of those who created the law that got the initiative on the ballot. And with some of the, maybe even with, I don't know if there's anything that you can get from the court system, but it just seems to me there needs to be a discussion.
Oh, and I don't disagree, Madam Chair. You know, as I mentioned last year, these are issues that the mayor has raised with me, certainly, and I have raised with her on a number of occasions. You know, I know she thinks about it on a regular basis. I know that she has been in situations where it has sort of chafed her, quite honestly. Everybody probably has a very, very different view about how this should be resolved or clarified. And at the end of the day, it will, certainly from my perspective, whatever advice my office and other lawyers in the government can give, other lawyers in the private sector can give, is certainly welcome. But any final decision is going to come from our elected officials and our policymakers.
Well, I agree, and perhaps maybe we need a bill that would articulate a particular opinion, and maybe we need to air that in the public domain.
If you need any suggestions, I got
We're going to work with you on that.
Chair.
Yes, we will work with, that's a commitment.
Sure.
And let's see if we can't get some of that done before we go to the budget season, which begins, is it April or the last week in March?
Sounds good.
All right, we would like to hold you to that. How does your office cooperate with this federal intervention that we have, like public safety issues as an example? I mean, I know there are many other examples, but certainly there.
There are a couple of different ways, you know, Madam Chair. You know, we certainly go back and forth with the Office of the Attorney General, who, as you know, is our primary legal representative, certainly in court. We advise our deputy mayor, we advise the mayor, we advise the city administrator on any questions they may have, issues. They consult with us on a regular basis. And a lot of this ends up feeling, you know, it's a feeling out process, trying to find the balance between what works for our government, what works for the federal government, what works for our residents. And it's a balancing act, and it probably changes to some degree or another almost every day. And it's dependent sometimes on circumstances and factors that have nothing to do with the District of Columbia, for example, because I certainly believe that what's going on in Minneapolis will in some way have a ripple effect on what happens throughout the rest of the country with respect to immigration enforcement. And I don't think we would necessarily be immune. I don't know this, but this is my thought.
Well, let me ask you specifically, is your office involved or was involved in any of the decisions that, or I'll say in the current activity where we have MPD seemingly cooperating with ICE? Did that question come to your shop?
Yes, but not directly, Madam Chair. It's come to our shop more as a hypothetical, meaning what should it look like in a perfect world? And, you know, another aspect of it that we certainly were asked to look at and comment on, as you may recall, there was a revised MPD order that former Chief Smith circulated last summer or in early fall. And that was the subject of much attention and much debate. I just know anecdotally that changes have been proposed to that, you know, that may or may not be made ultimately, but, you know, those will certainly not be the MOLC's decision in any of that.
So you're informing that the order that former Chief Smith promulgated and gave to MPD, you had a part in that, helping to make that
we certainly
decision.
looked at it. Yes.
Okay, all right. And so going forth, any activities that MPD would be engaged in, those matters would come to you for advice as well?
Only if Chief Carroll or Deputy Mayor Apia or City Administrator.
they
John,
ask,
you or
of
the mayor,
course.
If they ask our
Of
advice,
course,
yes,
yes.
absolutely. But keep in mind, Chief Carroll also has a very, very capable general counsel who he's certainly, able to consult on a regular basis. And that gentleman in turn consults with our office
Okay.
as needed. And the idea is we're
All
trying
of
to
them,
keep-
all of the agency legal team is under your guidance.
Well,
Am I
yes.
correct?
Yes, they're under
Okay, all right.
our guidance, Madam Chair, but not our supervision.
I
And
see.
there's a difference
Okay.
because, and that's something else that perhaps we can talk about another day, but MOLC has a dotted line to the agency council offices. They are technically and legally employees of the agencies where they work. So we weigh in on evaluations, we weigh in on discipline, we weigh in on salaries, we weigh in on, support and things like that. But all the general counsels are technically employees of the agencies where they work.
So MPDs would make a decision. Let's assume that their attorney would be involved in that decision.
Right.
Okay, and then it would come to you for informational purposes, or would you be required to weigh in on the decisions that they have made before the mayor signs off on it?
It would be a little bit of both. It could be informational if it wasn't a big deal to the MOLC and everybody was sort of on the same page about a particular issue, then it would be fine. If MOLC had a concern about a particular matter, we would articulate that concern both to the affected agency and to the mayor. And then, a decision would be made on those competing bits of information that she had to consider or that Chief Carroll had to consider.
All right. Well, I was trying very hard to examine the breadth of your agency and honestly, its strength to make the government, as I call it, work for the community. So that's the nature of those questions.
Understood. And to your question, Madam Chair, we don't directly have the ability to enforce a particular course of action or enforce a particular policy. We advise on all of those that we think are important or that come to our attention. And if there is, if it's a big enough issue and the debate is spirited enough, we elevate it as clearly and as straightforwardly as we can so that the people who make these decisions can consider it and ultimately decide. As you know, lawyers, our primary job, if we're not litigating, is to advise our clients.
And therefore, your office, I should view as a coordinating point
In some
on
ways,
major
yes. In some ways,
issues.
Yes.
Okay,
But again,
issues that have been brought to the mayor of significance.
My staff and I have never been shy about speaking out about a particular concern, and we'll continue to do that.
Let me ask you then, Mr. Edwards, whether or not this has occurred frequently or infrequently, a decision or a consideration that has come to you from agencies where you differ. Is that frequent or infrequent?
It's regular enough, Madam Chair, for it to be part of our portfolio. Now, it's not every day, but and I'll also add to that by saying a lot of these issues may be personnel matters. And, they're not directly policy matters or legal questions for the city government, but we may take issue with how a particular personnel matter was handled or not handled. But there are questions that affect the entire government. There are questions that affect how agency A is going to interact and work with agency B. And that's where we try to be the mediator. Listen to both sides, see what the most effective way is to move both agencies forward on their policies and programs, and keep the peace so that we're not at cross purposes with each other.
Okay, let's talk real quick about the issue that was presented by the public today.
Mr. Maloff, I know him, I'm aware of his name. I am not intimately associated with this issue. My deputy, Miss Vanessa Natali, I know has been in contact with him on a fairly regular basis. I do not know how recently they have talked about this, but I plan to consult after hearing his testimony today. I plan to consult with her as soon as I get back to my office, and I will figure out a way forward that will involve engaging with the witness and with the Department of Buildings to see how this can't be resolved. Because quite honestly, the irony in all of this is he was talking about the Office of Administrative Hearings. And as you know, in another life, I was the chief judge of that for, 5 years, starting back in the mid-teens. I know the current chief judge there. I know a lot of the administrative law judges there. And I need to understand from their perspective what the orders that the witness reference say. I need to understand how and why they have not been followed, if in fact they're supposed to be followed. But, this is going to require a conversation that I have not had yet, but certainly will undertake on his behalf.
I certainly,
and you have my firm commitment on
I really appreciate that. It's a little egregious to me that an order was placed, and 3 years has transpired, and we haven't found any wherewithal to provide Mr. Maloff with a report.
Well, I'm committing to you, Madam Chair, and the witness that I'll get to the bottom of this. I will come up with an answer, whatever that answer turns out to be, and then we'll see where that leaves us.
Well, that leads me to one other piece that you may have heard a lot about from our council session yesterday, where the issue is that we have been waiting for information about the various enhancements that an agency might inform the mayor that they would like to have or need. And the issue is that court case was won, and the government, operating side of government, has been instructed to comply, but we can't get it. What's going on?
And I certainly can't speak to any policy decisions that are made, certainly between the EOM.
So we
and
passed,
council.
we
But
passed
let me-
another law,
let-
Mr.
let-
Edwards, okay? We
Yeah.
keep passing laws, but we can't put you or the mayor in jail. So what do we do?
Let me say, Madam Chair, that the resolution of the lawsuit that you're talking about, it's a little bit more nuanced than that. And it's still being looked at and analyzed, certainly by my office. It may also, and it's my understanding, OAG is looking at it as well. I think I know that there was an informal resolution of the underlying lawsuit. And now there's a genuine question about the long-term implications of that case, particularly because it's my understanding that the law has changed. But I'm speaking very, very generally, and I know that's not very helpful. What I'll also commit to you to doing today is let me find out the specifics that I have had previous discussions with, but just cannot recall to be useful to you today. And I'll come to your offices.
Would you
We will have
please?
this discussion.
Yes, please.
I promise.
Please, can we arrange for a
Absolutely.
discussion within the next 10 days so we can,
Absolutely.
please?
Absolutely.
Um,
I have a couple of subject matter experts in my
and
office.
my colleagues and I do not understand what happens when there is a legal ruling through our courts and then our government doesn't follow it.
I understand that. And,
Okay.
and there's normally a process, as you know, Madam Chair, but as I mentioned a moment ago, I think the meaning of that particular case, and certainly in light of a recent change in the law, makes it a fair question about how and when people were supposed to comply with it. Let me get you the particulars
Okay.
as I promised to do, and we'll show up in your
Okay.
space and answer any and all questions that you have.
I appreciate that, but just understand
I hear you.
as
I
appropriators,
I
which
hear
the
you.
council is,
I hear you.
there seems to be an understanding that we would have access to all numbers. Now, I also know that the budget is prepared by the mayor. Okay, operating side of our government, and that we, the appropriators legislative side, we in turn examine that budget. And I suppose that this piece of paper, these enhancements are considered documents that can further help the appropriators understand the entire budgetary system.
I would.
Yeah, I would like for you to try and answer some of those questions because that's where there seems to be a kink in the chain of
I
reason.
hear you, Madam Chair, but
Okay.
I think one of the rubs in this is just that what the agencies do behind closed doors is they prepare their budgets before they send it to the mayor. And she and the CA make the final decisions about what the budget's going to look like. There's a persuasive argument to be made that all of that is deliberative process, meaning we're sort of trying this and trying that, talking about this and trying this. And I don't know if that's something that's should be automatically available either to members of the public or anybody else who doesn't make the final decision on the budget, as you have, correctly stated. It's the mayor's responsibility. But as I say, I've promised you, within the next 10 days, we'll check with Mr. Martell and anybody else you need us to schedule with. And we will come better prepared to address your specific questions about this as clearly and as carefully as we can.
All right, well,
Okay.
I thank you very much for that. Now we're going to talk about all the many questions that I really have for you. This was just from your testimony.
No, go. For
Oh, my goodness. Can you mention for us, discuss how your office handles harassment claims?
Okay, agencies are required to notify us of any and all for example, sexual harassment claims. And by and large, all the agencies comply. And once we become aware of those, we make sure that the agencies handle them in the appropriate way. So we offer advice in certain instances, we offer guidance, or we just monitor the process in those situations where an agency is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. We then, once the agency has complied with its responsibility, We then are given the findings of fact. It's called, I'm trying to think, there's a magic name for the document that we get, that we review essentially for legal sufficiency. We then send it back to the agency, and I have two very, very good lawyers who are experts in this area. And if you need if you need some more information on that, I can arrange for that as well. And then the matter is addressed in the appropriate way by the agency, and they're required to notify us of what the action was taken, so we can keep track of all the cases that are filed and what the resolution of it was.
And does
Every once in a while, depending on the circumstances, my office may have to get involved more directly.
Mhm.
You may recall there was a case a couple of years ago where my office actually handled it directly.
So let's say an agency makes a decision. Are you informing us that there have been times, and perhaps will into the future be times, when your office will, let's say, change the decision that an agency has made?
We won't change the decision that the agency has made, Madam Chair, because we don't have that authority. What we will do is go back to the agency and say, hey, you need to look at number 1, 2, and 3 because there's not adequate support for it, or there's not legally sufficient support for it. And in those instances, the agencies, by and large, will make the changes or make the necessary adjustments that we recommend. And, if they don't or they won't, then that's a different discussion.
All right. Does the Office of the DC Attorney General have the authority to change a decision?
Not that I'm aware.
Okay. Thank you. What
think-
about just general harassment? Do you receive reports from the agencies about general harassment? Not sexual, but just,
Only on an ad hoc basis, Mayor. Some general
Okay.
counsels sort of flag them to our attention if it's particularly egregious, but others know our primary responsibility, as you noted in this regard, has to do with sexual harassment cases.
all right.
And circling back to a question that you just made about the Office of the Attorney General, the 99.9% of the time, the agency director is the final decision maker in the sexual harassment cases.
Okay.
Now, at that point, as you know, an individual who's unhappy with that particular decision has the absolute right to go to court.
Can you elaborate on the role that your office plays in the hiring of general counsels in the various agencies?
When we become aware of a vacancy, general counsel vacancy, or a deputy general counsel vacancy, what we usually do, Madam Chair, is my office is not involved in the hiring of line attorneys. We leave that to the general counsels and the deputy general counsels of the affected agencies. But with respect to the general counsels and the deputies, they're both managers, as you know. We review resumes, we sit in on their interviews, we weigh in along with the other panel from the agency itself on what our thoughts and recommendations are. But that decision usually is with the agency director, who he or she wants to hire, unless there is just something totally egregious that makes that hire just wrong for a particular reason. And we'll make that, we'll flag that to the attention of the agency director and hope that he or she will follow our advice. Okay. But we sit in on the interviews, we review the resumes, we help identify candidates in those situations where we've been asked to, and sometimes we even make recommendations because we may know of somebody who has the skill set that a particular agency director is looking for, and we say, hey, you might like to talk to Johnny, or you might like to talk to Mary. And, you know, we facilitate their contact that way as
Okay.
well.
But basically, you have no authority for placing attorneys in the various
No,
agencies.
That is, you know, as I mentioned in response to one of your earlier questions, Madam Chair, the general counsels and the deputy general counsels are employees of those agencies. And so they, you know, they report directly to their directors
Okay.
or deputy directors as the case.
And you get involved when something comes to you from the agency.
Or when there's a problem, you know,
Yeah.
and
Well, the agency will notice you that there's a problem.
well, sometimes, or we'll hear about it.
Or
even
the media will
before
tell
we've
you
been
there's a
notified by
problem.
the agency. You know, there are very few secrets in the city government, as you know, Madam Chair. And so we may find out something before it becomes official information, and we'll look into it. And then if action is required, we take it.
So what do you do when the issue is with the director of an agency? How is that brought to your attention, through the media or?
It can come a number of ways. It can certainly come from the media, it can come from somebody who sees himself or herself as a whistleblower. They come anonymously sometimes. And, you know, we certainly have a responsibility to take those seriously. You know, we certainly look into them to the extent that we can. And of course, we tell the powers that be what we've heard, what we think we know, and then it's up to them to decide how next to proceed.
Do you have a particular protocol that you extend to the agencies, which would indicate the nature or the types of concerns that you are most capable of being consulted on?
I think most of them know, Madam Chair, primarily through their general counsels, but I have developed over, you know, my almost 6 years in this job, good relationships with virtually, you know, certainly all the deputy mayors, the CA, the mayor, of course, her senior staff, but the agency heads as well. You know, we see each other on a regular basis at cabinet meetings and other events. There are issues and meetings and discussions that my staff and I participate on a regular basis. So, and I think because we've been responsive, because we've been professional, because we've tried to help in all those instances, they're not shy about reaching out to us. I mean, I can't think of one agency head who's mad at us right now or would not pick up the phone and call me or one of my team if there was an issue that we could help them with. I just don't believe that exists.
I appreciate that response, but I'm also thinking about an earlier response you shared, and where you pointed out that we'll have new leadership in our government. And I responded, yes, but the government is into perpetuity. So I'm just wondering if there's a value to having a protocol. Your office is pretty unique. And if it were to be a part of the future, seems to me having a protocol would be very helpful. That's just an opinion that I have.
And that is certainly something that, you know, I and my colleagues will take under your recommendation, discuss. You know, I would have to think about, you know, the hows of it, the whens of it, but also what it would look like, because, you know, to date and over the last, you know, 5+ years, you know, our communications have not been, you know, official in that regard. You know, I've reached out to virtually all of the agency heads to say, hey, if they're, you know, we're here, this is what we do. If there's anything we can ever help you with, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. Here's my cell phone number. Here's my email address. Use it day or night. Text me, call me, and we'll circle back. And I can't think of, and again, this is probably more credit to my wonderful staff. I can't think of a single ball that we've dropped.
This was not designed to be
No, I
accusatory.
understand.
It was just,
And I appreciate that.
yes. You know, I'm one of these folk who likes to see government work well for our community. So it was in that vein that I'm, and I know that when you have procedures and processes, it's easy for someone coming in to pick up that and say, oh, this is what I need to do, and follow it. I understand the value of building relationships, et cetera, but the world moves quite fast now. Doesn't give you a lot of time to build relationships. So I was just curious about your thinking about that. And it seems to me if we wanted to explore protocols, maybe you have a protocol, maybe the DC Attorney General needs a protocol. And maybe we begin to get to a point of understanding who does what and when.
No,
The public needs to know that, because right now they're like,
No, and you make a remarkably fair point, Madam Chair. And one of the things that my team has been working on is sort of a handbook for our general counsels. And it certainly wouldn't be a stretch to, create a similar kind of handbook or part of that handbook and make that available to the senior staff at a particular agency as well. One of the differences, Madam Chair, between my office and many other agencies in city government is, we're mostly internally facing, as you know. There are a lot of agencies who are face forward with the public and interact with them directly. We do it much more indirectly because our primary responsibility is sort of to advise the government in those situations where it's appropriate. We get occasional walk-ins, we get emails, and we get calls from citizens, and in those situations, if there's something that we can help with, we have always tried to help. If it's something that we need to pass on to an agency that's better equipped to help, then we try to do that as well.
yes, I appreciate that. And I also know, as most of the public does, that you have direct access to the mayor and to the council and to the DC, Attorney General and our courts. And so therefore you are a pivoting point. So
I hear you.
okay.
But let me also add, Madam Chair, that you're right that, my office is sort of sits at a pivotal point with respect to the EOM, with respect to the council, with respect to OAG and the courts. I would guess that probably the only two that are glad to see lawyers coming, though, are the courts and OAG.
Okay.
Nobody else wants to see lawyers coming.
All right. I appreciate that.
And that's true in most of our personal lives. People roll their eyes, oh, here they come. This is what they're going to say. This is what they're going to do. So most people avoid lawyers if they can until they need one.
All right. Well, thank you for that. Now, you mentioned in your testimony that there had been, I think you sort of curtail the trainings that you had planned because of the volume of work.
We did. We got pulled away from
yes.
the curriculum that I envisioned we were going to have last year.
Okay.
And so we had some training sessions, not nearly as many as I had expected. But we're gonna sort of redouble those efforts and try to catch up in the remaining time of this.
All right. Would you send to the committee within the next 10 days your schedule of trainings that for this year?
Sure.
That would be helpful.
What I'd request, Madam Chair, is because we may not have solidified all the dates for those trainings, if I can send you the subject matters of what we're going to cover with respect to the training. And then later, as I get solid dates for them, I can fill
All
those
right.
in for.
And anything that you have already
Sure, and
scheduled
anything
or
we've already
planning?
done, yes.
Yes, that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Okay.
What is your agency's role in developing and implementing ethics standards across the district? And do you cooperate or impact Vega's plan of action?
Generally, our focus is more in the area of legal ethics, Madam Chair, as opposed to government ethics, which, as you know, is Vega's bailiwick. We offer advice on those when we think it's appropriate. Normally, in those situations where there's a genuine legal ethics question, we will refer the individual who is challenged by that or who is asking the question to bar counsel, because they have a particular part of their office that deals with ethical questions, and you have the ability to rely on a bar counsel opinion in a way that you might not be able to rely on one if I gave it to you.
Okay. You mentioned in one of your oversight responses on page 18 that you share that MOC and ORM from time to time discuss patterns or trends in litigation with an eye towards minimizing the district's liability. Can you elaborate a little bit on that? Give us some examples?
Sure. The Office of Risk Management, as you know, Madam Chair, is sort of essentially the first line of defense when somebody believes they have a claim against the city government. They are, in many instances, except in certain civil rights cases, they're required to give the city notice of what their claim is within 180 days. That office investigates it. That office attempts to resolve it at the claim level if it can. If they cannot, they let the claimant know, and he or she then can decide if they want to file a lawsuit to pursue their claim. Now, they also have a very, very capable general counsel's office. And part of the broad scope of their responsibility, Madam Chair, is to sort of keep an eye on risk management across the agencies and across the cities. Part of this is done by looking at trends in litigation. Part of it is done by looking at claims, but part of it is by interfacing with the MOLC on questions and issues that we have that often come from our interactions with the Office of the Attorney General. And so we will discuss the legality of a particular action or the illegality of it. We would discuss our views about a course of action or decision that the Office of the Attorney General has made. And the reason we do this, Madam Chair, is because, as you know, they have to represent the city in court. But we want to make sure that they are representing the city in court the correct way, or certainly in the way that the mayor expects that to be done.
So you're informing me that your office does and can impact decisions that are made by the Office of Risk Management.
Certainly weigh in, yes. I mean, ultimately, the decisions are theirs and Director Ross's. But do they listen to us? Absolutely. And conversely, we listen to them because, a number of the people in that shop were former colleagues of mine in another life. So
Okay.
I know them, I trust them.
Okay, and so then I assume your role is to protect the government.
Absolutely.
And is your role also to err on the side of fairness towards a employee, given the circumstances that you've reviewed?
Absolutely. And the primary reason for that, Madam Chair, is because I've been in the government a long, long time, as you know, and I've done a number of different things, served in a number of different capacities. I've seen our strengths and weaknesses. I've seen what we're good at, what we could be better at. I've seen wonderful managers. I've seen terrible managers. I've seen great colleagues. I've seen godly colleagues. My point in saying all that only is that over that time, if you're raised right, you also develop a set of values that come from your experience that make you sort of lean towards being as fair as you can. And besides, that's the essence of government, I think, is to be as fair to residents and visitors and claimants as we possibly can. I think that may be the biggest part of our job, because so many of the people that we have to help or service in some way are disadvantaged, disenfranchised, and you can't take advantage of people. Just can't. And I won't. So.
You mentioned you've seen a lot. You opened that door for me. And so what are some of the things that we're good at? Just one or two.
You know, it's sort of across the board. I think our agencies, by and large, run very, very well. I think the council does a great job with respect to its oversight responsibilities, although, you know, not everybody agrees, but that's also true about, you know, our mayor and me and anybody else we can talk about. But I think we have an extraordinarily generous social service net, which, you know, is very, very expensive, as you know, but I think this is also what you have to do to help you. I think trying to think, you know, by and large, we handle personnel matters and we treat people fairly. I think even under budgeted, you find amazing people who are willing to go above and beyond what their essential responsibilities are to help a situation, to improve a situation. And it has been certainly my recent privilege and over many, many years to work with some extraordinary people. And, you know, in my opening comments, it's been a joy to work with you all these years. So you would be one of my bright spots too. So
Thank you very much, Mr. Edwards, for humoring me. I appreciate that sincerely. I just thought we would take the time this morning to really explore the value of your office.
And I appreciate that, because you have. And you know, we're not, we don't get a lot of publicity because we're internally facing. But again, nobody wants to see the lawyers, one, but the other part of it is our job is just to do what we're supposed to, give the best advice we can. We get out of the way until we can't get out of the way. Then we jump back in. But
well, indirectly, I see your office as sort of like oiling the wheels that are moving and hopefully moving forward.
We try to, but as you know, Madam Chair, it's notwithstanding, you know, many developments over the years that we've all been a part of government. It still is a government of relationships, and I tell people that all the time. And sometimes knowing the right person to go to get a certain thing done is more useful than going to a particular leader in an agency.
Well, okay, that's 1 minute. We'll talk one minute about some of the activities that you're involved in, I believe. Have you weighed in, for instance, on the Nationals baseball lease?
I'm sorry, the baseball?
Yeah, the baseball lease, you know, it's up for renewal and it's in
No,
progress.
we have not yet.
Okay,
We
all
have
right,
not yet. We have not been asked.
all right.
Yeah,
Have
we-
not been asked.
Yeah.
Okay, what about did you weigh or tell us how you weighed in on the agreement that we have with the commanders and the utilization of RFK?
Okay, we looked at, we looked at a lot of the documents and worked very, very closely with DEMPED and our deputy mayor to make sure that the trains moved on time and the paper flow was appropriate, and that the Office of Attorney General was involved in those instances where they should have been involved during the development process and the formulation of that deal.
All right. Have you had the occasion to look at the federal plan for the renovation of the golf courses in the city?
We only became, apart from what we've seen in the paper, we only became aware of that from the general counsel at our Office of Zoning, who's very, very capable. He reached out because his office had some, and some questions and concerns as, and to a point that you made at the outset of our hearing was, we will probably, there'll be questions about the arc or the arch. There'll be questions about Formula One racing on city streets, when and how and what the impact of that will be. There will be a number of special events that the city will have to ramp up for over the next year, certainly. And we routinely are at the table when the mayor convenes the teams that plan those and look at those.
I appreciate hearing that. What I would like to request, and I don't know that you can respond to it, but I would like to request that, let's say, on a monthly basis, that we hear from your office as to where and how these projects are moving forward as it relates to any legal advice that is appropriate for public consumption.
Sure.
I'm not asking for the legal documents
No,
and
I get anything we can
advice.
share, and I've told you this before, Madam Chair. Anything we can share, we're happy to share.
All right.
There,
Okay.
we have no secrets
Yeah.
except those that we have to keep for our clients.
Yeah, and I asked because of this snow ice storm, it's become very real that the public just needs to know we're doing something. We're doing our job. We're engaged on issues that are important to them. So I just want to make sure that, the EOM is saying something about these matters that is not just, the general. Yeah.
And specifically to that point, Madam Chair, I can tell you that is 110% the case. I am on since the snow first fell that Sunday. The mayor has had multiple calls a day with, I'm not sure why the lawyers are on, but we are, because they started out.
Well, you're on
as a different
because
kind of call.
there are residents who are threatening to sue and all those, and in DC, we probably have an attorney for every 19 or 15 residents.
That's probably.
And whether you pass the bar or not, you know the language and you utilize the language. So I understand that.
But to your point about the deal, we have literally, I was on one at 8:30 this morning about the snow, and we get reports from all the affected HCMA, DDOT, DPW, trash pickup, snow removal. And, as you might imagine, with this kind of snow, given the size of the storm and how hard and heavy this particular snow came when the ice pack fell on it, it's been a different animal. And we've tried to communicate that through, the Mayor's Office of Communication. She's had press conferences, as you know. But the calls address every single moving part of the challenge.
All right. So tell me, are we as a city going to use those fire sticks to clear bus stops? Just as an example, it'll melt it immediately. It'll go down the drain.
And Madam Chair, I don't know the answer to those questions because for all the calls that I've been on, and I think I might have missed just one, I've never even heard the word fire stick.
It's that little thing that you hold and the flames come out, and
You mean like a
I
flame?
stored in one of, yes, not a thrower, but kind of.
I tell you what I will do is,
I'm getting that question. That's the most recent question that we have gotten.
I will-
And people want to know the ice is going to melt slowly because the temperature is good right now. But having lived my life here in the District of Columbia, I can tell you that even when we just have snow, piles of snow take a while to dissipate.
They do.
Okay. So we have ice now.
Let me promise you this. Director Crispino at DPW is a good buddy of mine. As soon as we get out of here, I will call him and I will get you the 411 on fire sticks.
All
I've
right.
never heard of it.
Okay. All right. I hope
Except
the
that thing
public
that you
is
get from
listening
Amazon.
and they know that we will have some information to share.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. And then finally, I wanted to, and thank you very much for the FOIA report. Just wondered if you care to comment on the time frame that it's taking to respond to FOIA requests now. You said you cleared up the backlog.
No, we're completely, and I apologize if I
Okay.
misspoke, madam. We are completely current. So
Okay.
we've taken care of the backlog. We are, however far we are into 2026, we are doing those FOIA appeals.
All right. So the report that you indicated is that you have no pending FY26 FOIA requests.
That's correct. Now, the challenge we have seen,
Okay.
Madam Chair, and it's something we try to help the agencies with, is a lot of times a resident will send in a FOIA request and they won't hear anything from the agency. And then they complain or they appeal. And when we get the appeal says, I sent a request for these documents to DPW and I never heard back, and it's 6 months later. So part of what we have to do is get DPW to first respond to see if that individual still will have a valid appeal. And so the real time lag now is agency responses. Now, certainly not in every instance, and these are anecdotal. They don't happen all the time, but some agencies are better and more efficient than others in terms of the timeliness of the responses and the substance of their responses.
Let me ask you, do we have a system where an agency receives the request and then within 10 days or after 10 days, the agency notifies your office that they have received a request and they're working on a response? Do we have that kind of system today?
I believe there is a tickler system Madam Chair, but what I'd much rather do than speculate about how it works and what it looks like is part of what we'll do the next time we get together is I'll bring my FOIA people, and they can tell you chapter and verse about that and explain how and why it works, how they are notified of FOIA appeals, and whether or not they hear directly from agencies when agencies get appeals. I just don't know the answer to that question off the top of my head.
All right, well, thank you. We'll look forward to that second meeting with your office for that purpose. And as you know, this month, the U.S. District Attorney Perot announced intentions to jail anyone who brings a gun into the district.
An illegal gun.
Yeah, well, she said a gun.
She said gun? I thought she clarified her remarks to say that.
Maybe she did, but initially the public heard a gun. And I was just wondering, how do you envision the district approaching this matter?
I think, we will follow what the law is, and that would certainly be my advice. I would assume that would be the attorney, our attorney general's advice as well. Now.
And so the law will definitely say that if it's registered and you have a license to carry, in Montana, you can carry in the district?
If that's what our current law is, Mayor, I mean, Madam Chair, then the answer would be yes. I'm not a gun guy, so I don't know what the current state of the law is, so.
All right. Well, if you could give us
But I'll certainly find
any
out.
information on that.
Yep.
Right. I
And so
believe,
just so I'm clear, Madam Mayor, your question is about somebody licensed to own and carry a gun in another state coming to DC.
correct,
Okay.
yes. How do we plan on treating that based on,
Exactly.
as you say, the law? And what do we do about district residents who have a license for a weapon, but inadvertently forget and put it in their pocket and have it with them? And
I think, if they are arrested and charged for carrying without a carry license, then, it is referred for prosecution, papered and referred for prosecution. But whether or not that case is actually prosecuted would depend on, USAO and or the judge.
all right, I'm hoping that you'll weigh in on these.
Sure,
I think
sure.
they're issues we have to deal with.
No, I think quite honestly, this is my personal belief is that if it's a genuine mistake and you're not a criminal, I don't think you go to jail for that.
You're going to convey that to the DC,
Ms. Bureau?
yes, the U.S. Attorney's Office. Okay. Your office is presently a part of the Interagency Detention Work Group, consisting of other partners, the District Court, Department of Justice, Legal Aid, Marshal Service, of course, OAG, and Department of Corrections and the Federal Bureau of Prisons. How often does that work group meet, and what are you wrestling with going forward into this new fiscal year, FY26?
To be honest, Madam Chair, this is the first I'm hearing of that. I wasn't even aware that we were part of that task force. And I am not aware that certainly me or any of my team has ever participated in that task force. Now, if this is a situation where I've dropped the ball. I'll certainly find out.
Okay. Right.
Because if we're supposed to be there and we're not, then that's something I will absolutely correct right away. I can't even remember any communications about.
We asked on page 19 for elaboration on relationship between the MOLC and the following agencies, including executive agencies, the council, the DC Attorney General, and the US Attorney General, and the DC judicial system. And this is where, and any other legal entities. And so this is where you pointed out with, as you said, also the MOC remains responsive and helpful to solve specific problems, address legal concerns, and in some cases, to be the conduit for informational messages to other parts of the government when it's appropriate. Then you say, presently, the MOC is a member of.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was the nature of,
No,
I was
see
just
that,
curious.
Madam Chair, and
one of your able lieutenants must be the participant.
I'm hoping that's the case, but I promise you
Okay.
I will
All
find
right.
out and let you know.
We were very curious and
Well-
wondered if that group was
So am I now.
doing anything
No.
that we could put our finger on.
You know, if you'll give me a little bit of time to inquire, Madam Chair, I'll absolutely circle back and let
All
you know,
right.
because this is, okay.
Well, thank you. I know you've been
And I
with us.
apologize for the confusion.
That's all right. We've been together for a little while here, and we certainly appreciate learning more about the breadth of the service that your agency provides, even though, as you say, it does not do public facing. It seemingly has and provides opinions on much of what makes our government work. So thank you very much for that. Next, we will hear from the, right, do we have any more witness? Okay, we're just checking for any additional public witness. Thank you.
Excuse, Madam Chair.
Yes, please, yes.
And we'll reach out to your office to schedule a meeting at your convenience.
Thank you.
and we'll
Thank you very
address
much.
The 3 or 4 issues that you flagged.
Yes, we'll send you a little note on it. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you for your time. Next, we'll hear from the DC Office of Employee Appeals. And the Office of Employee Appeals is an independent administrative adjudicatory agency that processes appeals filed by the district government's workforce. Such appeals may be brought where an employee has been removed because of an adverse action or cause, placed on enforced leave, suspended for 10 days or more, subjected to a reduction in force, or affected by a safety-sensitive designation. And the office consists of a 5-member board, an executive director, a general counsel, an administrative support team, and 6 administrative judges. And now we are poised to hear from this important small agency that may need some additional resources. We're going to find out today. So with that, I'll ask the director and her team if they will raise their right hand. I'll swear them in. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make before us today to be complete and truthful?
Yes.
Thank you very much. And we will proceed.
Good morning, Chairperson Bonds and the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor. My name is Sheila Barfield, and I am the Executive Director of the Office of Employee Appeals. I'm joined today by my General Counsel, Lashika Brown-Bassey, one of the Senior Administrative Judges, Michelle Harris, and my Chief Operating Officer, Him Chan Himraj. Thank you for this opportunity to testify before you and the committee regarding OEA's performance for fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2026 to date. As you know, OEA is an independent agency whose mission is to render impartial, legally sufficient, and timely decisions on appeals filed by district government employees. OEA offers district government agencies and employees a three-part appeal process consisting of mediation, adjudication, and petitions for review. In addition to the three-part appeal process, OEA also considers motions for compliance and motions for attorney fees. OEA has a 5-member board of directors. Currently serving on OEA's board of directors is Pia Winston as chairperson, Arrington Dixon, a board member, LaShawn Adams, board member, and Jean Moorhead, also a board member. And there is currently 1 vacancy on the board. With respect to OEA's performance, the agency had a successful FY 2025. We set a target at the start of fiscal year 2025 to issue 80 initial decisions and 15 opinions and orders on petitions for review. We exceeded those targets by issuing 95 initial decisions and 22 opinions and orders on petitions for review. Moreover, the courts upheld most of our decisions that were appealed either to the DC Superior Court or to the DC Court of Appeals. In addition to that, we continue to improve operational efficiency with respect to employee filings and agency responses through the use of the email filing options. As I have previously mentioned, the email filing option is a stopgap measure while we await full funding to implement a fully electronic filing system. One of the issues I'd like to discuss more fully with the committee is based on one of the questions posed by the committee in its pre-hearing questionnaire. The committee asked whether there were any legislative changes that would enable us to better meet our mission. As I just mentioned, OEA's mission is to adjudicate appeals filed by district government employees and to render impartial, legally sufficient decisions on those appeals. Another mandate imposed on OEA is to exert every possible effort to resolve matters by mediation to the extent possible rather than through litigation. To carry out this aspect of its mission, OEA has a robust mediation program in which all of its administrative judges, the general counsel, deputy general counsel, paralegal specialist, and I are all certified mediators. Because of this, I am requesting that the committee consider introducing legislation that would grant OEA jurisdiction over grievances and require that those grievances be mediated. Such legislation would benefit the district government by providing its agencies and employees with access to certified mediators who would aid the parties in reaching a mutually acceptable solution, which oftentimes is more creative and specifically tailored to the circumstances of the case, unlike strict legal remedies imposed by a judge. Excuse me. I believe this new legislation would fit nicely in the DC Code as a new section 1-606.03B, right after the section dealing with the appeals of safety-sensitive designations. And my office and I are available to work with the committee on drafting this legislation. The committee also asked in its pre-hearing questionnaire that we list all electronic databases maintained by us. As you know, for the past several years, I have requested additional funding for the purpose of upgrading our current database to allow for full electronic filing of all documents. As I have stated, full electronic filing will significantly improve operational efficiency and service delivery. It will remove the need for paper processing and speed up case handling through automation. In this regard, OEA submitted a budget enhancement request asking that approximately $253,000 be added to its fiscal year 2026 budget. Even though that request was not approved, and even though we are not able to submit any budget enhancement requests in the fiscal year 2027 budget cycle, we remain hopeful that such a request will be approved in the fiscal year 2028 budget cycle. The significant work which OEA performs provides a valuable service to the district government as well as to the citizens of this city. We all have an interest in knowing that employees with performance deficiencies are having those deficiencies addressed in a manner that is in accordance with the law. This concludes my testimony, and we are happy to answer any questions you and the committee have.
Thank you very much, and thank you so much for all that your office does. And this is exciting that you have had the opportunity to hear more from our workforce, and you've gotten the opinions out quickly. Thank you so much for that. I do want to ask about, you said most decisions that were appealed. What, can you give me some numbers? Like you mentioned, you made 95 decisions. Of the 95, were they set in stone, or were there some adjustments through the appeals process?
Are you referring to the outcome of the cases at the court level, the DC Superior Court?
What I'm reading, if I'm not mistaken, is that you're saying you had 95 initial decisions.
Oh,
And
yeah.
of those, how many stuck?
Oh, I see what you're saying. How many were, let me see if I can find that.
Yeah,
I think
accepted.
my general counsel has that information readily available.
So in fiscal year 2025, there were 9 appeals filed in Superior Court. 7 were filed in the DC Court of Appeals. During that fiscal year, there were 19 decisions issued by Superior Court and 10 decisions issued by the Court of Appeals. There was 1 remand, 2 reversals, and 26 cases were upheld in court.
All right.
So that's an overall success rate of 93%.
Yes. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. So that says that if anyone in our government should take on the responsibility of mediation, it should be your small agency.
I believe so, yes.
Yes. So I'm very, very excited about your idea that let's do mediation and let's make that work.
Yes.
I can in fact see all of our concerns that come to a director having an opportunity to be aired through your process. So I hope that when you do your draft legislation, it will contain that, and we're ready to move it forward.
Yeah, well, I have talked to everybody in my office about, I think we spoke about it one time last year about the same time.
Yeah.
You brought up the topic of grievances being handled by OEA, and since that time, we have had multiple discussions with my office about that, what that would look like, how that would work. And I think we decided that probably the best route would be to have this additional legislation granting us the jurisdiction over grievances with the mandate that they be mediated, since we are all certified mediators and are available to handle that. And oftentimes, these questions of grievances come up in adverse action cases. And what we have done, since we don't have jurisdiction over the grievance part of that case, the judges generally just say we can't make a ruling on that particular topic, but we can go on and issue the decision based on the adverse action that is really being appealed. So we are sort of like having issues that are left hanging in the air when we issue those decisions. And I think having this jurisdiction over those grievances would allow the judge to pass that on to the mediator, or if it comes up in the context of an adverse action, then it could be just contained within the decision of the judge as well.
How do you see the handling of simple harassment cases that tend to surface in an agency? Not sexual harassment, because we have a mayor's order on that, but just harassment. you know, my boss seems to have his foot on my throat and I'm working, you know, through my lunch hour, but still I can't seem to satisfy. So I'm being harassed.
Well, I don't know if that would really be considered a I mean, that maybe that could be in the context of a grievance, workplace harassment. I don't know if that is really what is considered a grievance type issue. But, you know, if it is determined that that's in the nature of a grievance, then that would be subject to mediation under this new legislation that I'm proposing that the committee introduce.
Okay. Sounds like we need to be really clear on
That's right.
workforce harassment.
Yes.
What is its definition?
Yes, but oftentimes the grievances come up in the context of like reprimands that maybe the employee has gotten, which are not part of OEA's, which is not an adverse action. Or maybe it's a suspension for less than 10 days, which to come to OEA, you have to have been suspended for 10 days or more. Maybe it's in the context of a reasonable accommodation that was not honored or granted or dealt with appropriately.
Yeah, we have talked about the reformations that have had when we've had to look at in the past. So,
Mhm.
yeah. All right. Your robust mediation program. It is all of you who are okay. So do you need 2 additional positions? Let's say if real volume of work increased because you have this ability, approximately how many cases of mediation are done on a monthly basis by one individual in your office? Or is that a way to count what the employee need you might have, increased employee need that you might have?
Well, I do envision if this legislation becomes a reality, that there would be a need for additional staff. But it would also be driven by the number of grievances, because right now, the mediations that are done are really just adverse action mediations. They're not grievance mediations. So this new legislation that I'm proposing that the committee would introduce would just be targeted specifically toward grievances, grievance actions. Now, I think somewhere in in these questions, we mentioned that probably in the 3rd or 4th quarter of this fiscal year that we aim to hire a new administrative judge, because I also mentioned in these questions that one of our our only part-time administrative judge resigned/retired last June. And so that left us now with just 5 full-time administrative judges. And her work had to then be distributed to the other judges as well. So we are getting ready to formulate a recruitment plan and look actively to hiring another administrative judge by the end of this fiscal year. And I say all that to say that that administrative judge will then become a certified mediator too, because that's one of the trainings that all new administrative judges undergo, and that is to become certified mediator, and also the training for the judicial college training that they attend as well. So depending on the volume of grievances that would come in, that, you know, I do see the need for increased funding and perhaps additional staff to handle that, because right now all of the mediations that are done are just in the context of adverse actions.
Do you
And they are all voluntary, so.
right? Do you have a sense of what the volume might be? Maybe from contacts with other agencies that can help us understand what that volume might be?
I don't really have a sense of that. No, I can't even hazard a guess at that right now.
All right, I think without having a sense of it, maybe we'll talk to the DCHR, maybe they can help us with this. Although the independent agencies tend not to share very much, I sense, with that important department. But I was just thinking, to get this proposal through, it would be very helpful to have a sense of what the volume might be.
Yes.
Because it sounds like, and as someone, I'm a certified mediator, by the way.
Oh.
So it takes a moment. It's not something that happens, instantly.
Right.
And I would think you would need at least an additional person. But then we also want to make sure that the agencies understand, send your mediation cases to,
Absolutely.
yes,
Yes,
the OEA, yeah.
Right. I envision that while the new legislation could possibly be placed in that particular section that I mentioned, I think there would have to be other conforming type amendments, perhaps to the DPM, the DCMR, all of those different
Yes.
regulations that would then sort of back up this new legislation.
So, do you have space for 2 new personnel?
We do, yes,
Okay.
we do.
All right,
Yes.
okay. That's always a
Rent space,
question.
yes.
Or are we now talking about moving and
No.
yada, yada? Okay.
No, we're very happy where we are. Yes.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you for that. On your requests for your electronic filing system, can you submit something to me to indicate, the name of the system and what have you? So we'll have that come budget time, and we'll have your legislative proposal on mediation. And let's see if we have a bunch of questions for you.
Okay.
Let's see. The Office of the DC Auditor asked us whether our government exacts lessons from OEA decisions issued against agencies to inform future practices and training. Would it be possible for you to train agency management on repeated issues from cases to reduce future disputes? And this is question 35.
Yes, when I saw that question, I thought, oh, that probably is going toward what the DC auditor asked. Now, OEA is more like a court. We are a court. We are an administrative body that issues legally binding decisions, much like the DC Superior Court and the Court of Appeals. And once our decisions are issued, it is then the responsibility, it is incumbent upon the attorneys who represented the parties, the various parties, to read those decisions and act accordingly. So in my opinion, because most of the attorneys who come before our office are OAG attorneys, it is incumbent upon the OAG to read those decisions, extract the lessons that are given within those decisions, pass that information down to the various agency heads and general counsels at those agencies, and then go forward based on what they have learned from those decisions. I think it would be a big conflict of interest for us to train attorneys and agencies on how to discipline their employees. like I said, I think it's incumbent upon the OAG's office to get the lessons out of those decisions, because all of the decisions contain the reasons why perhaps the agency's action was overturned, or it contains the reasons why the agency's actions were upheld. And they can learn from those decisions, the outcome of those decisions, and figure out, oh, then we need to continue to do this, 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 and this, or we should change up the way we do this particular thing.
Sounds like we may be talking about the MOLC taking on some responsibility for the training. Since they have a package of trainings that they like to adhere to. Now, you heard earlier, they're very busy.
Yes.
Rendering an
Yes.
opinion and opinion and opinion
Yes.
all day long, 24/7. So I don't know. And it would be great if we could stipulate this for the DC Attorney General, but in the organizational chart, they're just a box. No lines leading to anything. So I'm sure they feel they're totally independent to do as they please. So I'm just wondering, how do we really, is there some way for assurance that the important decisions that are made are really conveyed and utilized into the future? So it's not like case law somewhere in a book that is just sitting on a shelf.
I don't have the answer to that. All I can say is that OEA has to guard its neutrality.
All right.
I think in order for the agencies and the employees that come before us to feel confident in our ability to render impartial decisions, we have to,
All right.
stand on being neutral.
All right. So then that means that DCHR may have some responsibility in this. And that would open it up so that they can talk to the independent agencies as well.
Perhaps, yes.
Yes, okay, I knew you were gonna, I knew you were gonna stick to it. All right, I appreciate that. Okay. I think we are aware, but just for the record, what have been the most common types of cases brought before your office?
Do you have that information? The general counsel can answer.
All right,
please.
thank you.
Adverse actions are the majority of our caseload. In fiscal year 2025, we had only 16 cases involving jurisdiction, 63 cases involving adverse actions, 5 reduction in force actions, 6 compliance cases, and 5 attorney's fees cases.
So what does compliance, what does that mean?
I will have our administrative judge, Michelle Harris, explain.
All right.
Hello. So our compliance cases arise once we've issued an order in our initial decision. Typically, that is when we have reversed an agency adverse action. So there are orders in that require back pay, the payment of attorney's fees, or otherwise. If we hear from an employee or their representative that has not been met in the time frame, and that's set in our order, a certain number of days for that to have been met, they will file a notice and say, we have not received our back pay, or we have not been reinstated or otherwise. And so that initiates for us as judges the compliance, and then we have the parties come back before us and walk through the process of trying to enforce compliance. In the event that we are unable to do so, then we do have to forward that matter to our general counsel's office for additional enforcement. But most of the time, we're able to walk through that process with the parties to ensure compliance of our orders and our initial decisions.
All right, well, thank you. There was a case that was brought to our attention a few months ago, and it had to do with misclassification of employees. there'd been employees transferred from one office or one department to another. And there was an assumption made by the new supervisor that everything was in order. In other words, the new employees that were transferred from one agency to the other were being compensated accordingly. But it was discovered that they were not being paid at the union rate. And I'll follow up with you if I might, so we can see if that case had worked its way to you or how it's being resolved.
Yes, please do.
All right. Now that I know that your decisions are binding
Yes.
in total, all right, okay, thank you for that. Data from your office indicated that DC Public Schools has the highest number of cases filed. A total of 25 cases, I think, in FY '25. What patterns or common issues is what's going on, since that's a pretty high number for one agency?
Well, I don't know if our administrative judge, can you speak to that, or?
Sure. I think the majority of those, at least on my docket, have been a lot of the impact. When employees have received their evaluations post-impact, they may be subject to termination based on their scores. So I would say, from what I recall from my FY '25, a lot of my cases were impact related. And then otherwise, there would be other adverse actions. There may be some type of misconduct or other charges. But I would say impact would be the majority for me.
All right, well, thank you. That helps us. And not quite, okay. You indicate that you have one vacancy
Well,
on the board. Or
yes,
is
we
it
do.
two?
On the board. No, on the board, we have one vacancy on the board. Yes.
Okay, all right. And do you have any prospects as to when that might be forthcoming, the filling of that
I think
position?
there was talk some time ago about, I think some names were sent to us, resumes were sent to us, but I don't think any movement has taken place since probably back in the summertime.
Oh,
Last
well,
summer,
we
right?
will
Has it been
follow up.
last summer?
We definitely will follow up with you.
Yeah, it's been some
for that.
time since we've heard anything about it.
Yes, there was a backlog of 15 months on one particular.
Oh,
So we'll
yeah,
try to follow up
yes.
with the office on your behalf to see where we can get that. Can you provide an update on the status of filling your paralegal specialist position?
Well, as you know, I think I mentioned it in one of these questions. We had hired a paralegal last fiscal year, FY, let's see, we're in 26, FY 2025. She joined the office, I think it was maybe in September. Yeah, well, actually that was FY 2024, but she really just came on board in FY '25. And in April of FY 2025, she realized that she wanted to have a job closer to her home, so she resigned from OEA. That was totally unexpected. We were, onboarding her and had begun to, she had begun really working with us and filling the gaps that we needed with our administrative judges unit. But then out of the blue told us that she wanted to take a job closer to her home. So she did that. Since that time, and then after that, shortly after that, the part-time administrative judge retired. And so assessing our needs since then, I have determined that right now what is most important for us is to hire another administrative judge. And then to focus on, after I've hired the new administrative judge this fiscal year, to then focus on in FY 2027, hiring a paralegal specialist. So the priority right now is the administrative judge, and then in FY 27 to then move into the paralegal specialist, hopefully with somebody who will stay with us.
All right. And also someone to help with this new mediation.
Yes, absolutely, because
legislation.
that person, the paralegal
Okay.
specialist, would also become a certified
All right.
mediator.
And would you, when you send the legislative ideas forward, would you give me some indication of what kind of salary we're talking
Mhm.
about, so that when we get into the budget, we can be thorough
Yes.
in looking at this? I believe that agencies that are able to toot their horn and show extreme results should continue to grow and impact the government and the community. So thank you very much
Thank you.
for that. One last question, trying to understand, this was question 53 on page 21. Given the reversals in cases involving DC Fire and EMS Department and the Department of Youth Rehabilitation Services, what steps does the agency see as important for strengthening your approach and reducing the likelihood of future reversals? Or is there something else that needs to be done in hearing those kind of cases?
So there were two primary issues in the 2025 remands and reversals from Superior Court and the Court of Appeals, and the 2026 Superior Court remands thus far. The first issue was OEA addressing the agency reemployment priority program, and the courts found that we didn't do enough in addressing those issues and sent cases back to us. So that was for three of those decisions. The second issue was OEA's decision in a number of cases involving the 2012 versus the 2019 version of the DPM that should have been used by agencies. The courts disagreed with our assessment that the 2019 DPM sections should have been applied. And so we had a few cases that were reversed because of that. So we do not intend to have any reversals so far in fiscal year 26. We have not had any. We've had just a couple remands, and those were the two primary issues why.
All right, for the public, can you explain what DPM 2019 is?
Yes, sorry, the District Personnel Manual. So there was a version, well, our administrative judge may know more about this issue, but there was a 2012 version and a 2019 version. So she can speak more to that.
Sure. So those cases hinged on the agency's use of those versions of the district personnel manual in the cases that were before the Superior Court, before the OEA. It was found that the agency's use of the 2012 district personnel manual wasn't appropriate given the time in which the adverse action occurred and when it was filed before our office. And it was deemed that the 2019 version of the DPM should have been utilized. When that was appealed, the Superior Court disagreed and noted that it was appropriate for the agencies to have utilized the 2012 version of the district personnel manual. I do think some of those cases may still be pending in the Court of Appeals. So I think, but that is the gist of what that occurred.
You know what I'm going to ask? So how do the courts get to decide what version of a personnel manual should be used? Is it based on the time when the egregious action took place, and therefore you would be subjected to the rules and regulations at that time? Or is it when the case is filed?
It largely stemmed on the collective bargaining agreement. And that is what they utilized to determine that the 2012 version was still in place.
Okay, because that's where the collective bargaining, okay. So that may speak to when we examine your sister agency, we want to make sure that the collective bargaining agreements are based on the most recent personnel manual, seems to me. So that's a little piece we want to make sure that we have the honor of talking to all of you, you know, so we try to catch these little pieces and then, you know, pass it on. So thank you very much. In fact, thank you all very much for all the work that you do. Thank you very much. And we look forward to continuing to work with you and to get the legislative ideas and any other thoughts that you have of things that you feel that can, I'll say, enhance what we do as it relates to helping our employees understand their role and responsibility and their positive action in our community and our government.
And Councilmember Bonds, I want to say thank you for all that you have done for OEA, for your oversight of our agency. The time that you have chaired this committee has been a pleasure to work with you and your entire staff. And thank you. And I wish you the best as you move
Thank
forward
you.
into your other part of your life.
Thank you very, very much. My fourth reinventing myself. Yes.
Never too late. So I've
That's
heard.
right. That's right. Thank you. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
All right. Now we have the pleasure of bringing forth DCHR, which is their affectionate name. It's Department of Human Resources, which sounds okay. The DC Department of Human Resources provides human resource management, that is, personnel services that strengthen individual and organizational performance and enables the district government to attract, develop, and retain a well-qualified and diverse workforce. The department is organized into 6 administrations and the Office of General Counsel, and all report to the Office of the Director. The 6 administrations include Human Resources Solutions, Strategic Human Capital, Benefits and Retirement, Policy and Compliance, and the Center for Learning and Development. And we will now hear from their director, Director Hall, and I will swear you in. And I see you have your cadre here to call on. All right. Do you swear and affirm that your testimony and any statements that you make today to be truthful and complete?
I do.
Thank you very much. And we'll take your testimony when you're ready. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Councilmember Bonds, members of the Committee on Executive Administration and Labor, and committee staff. My name is Charles Hall Jr., and I have the privilege of serving as the Director for the DC Department of Human Resources. I'm thankful to Mayor Bowser for the privilege to serve in this capacity, and thank you for the opportunity this morning to testify on DCHR's fiscal year 2025 and fiscal year 2026 performance to date. As the primary personnel authority for most district agencies, DCHR is dedicated to delivering exceptional human resource services that enhance both individual and organizational performance, enabling the district government to attract, develop, and retain top talent. Each day, we dedicate ourselves to building a world-class workforce that serves our city with excellence. At DCHR, we believe that public service should be an accessible and attainable career path. For our residents, we are expanding our recruitment initiatives and growing our talent pipelines to ensure our workforce is prepared to provide world-class service. DCHR hosted and participated in multiple hiring fairs and events in 2025 to increase the district government's visibility to job seekers. In February, we hosted the New Year, New Career Winter Hiring event. Prior to the event, we hosted 2 applicant prep sessions on district employment and application processes, attended by about 100 participants. The 2-day hiring event drew over 1,000 participants and featured resume writing workshops. According to the Washington Post, the DC region lost 72,000 federal government jobs in 2025. Many federal government employees are district residents. These district residents offer a wealth of experience and expertise that can benefit the district government. To reach this population, in March of 2025, DCHR, in collaboration with DOES, hosted the Gateway to District Careers hiring event. The event included approximately 70 district agency partners and private sector organizations and attracted over 500 participants. In addition to recruitment, we're proactively strengthening our talent pipeline by deepening our engagement with nonprofit organizations and local universities. In FY25, we partnered with Work for America, a nonprofit organization that provides support and resources to local governments to recruit persons who have the passion and desire to be public servants. Through this partnership, DCHR can market upcoming hiring events and district positions on Work for America's website and can access their pool of resumes to identify and invite prospective candidates to apply for district positions. Between April and June of 2025, DCHR increased the district government's presence at local universities by attending UDC's Spring Fling event, which connects UDC students and upcoming graduates with resources and employers across the district, the Academy of Hope's inaugural College and Career Fair, and the HBCU Connect annual conference and hiring fair. To further attract the next generation of district government, DCHR launched the Public Service Launchpad Initiative. Through this initiative, DCHR partners with district high schools, colleges, and universities, as well as trade schools, to showcase the purpose, impact, and career pathways available in public service while advancing Mayor Bowser's Grow DC plan. We remain diligent in ensuring adequate staffing of critical city services. In summer of 2025, DCHR worked with multiple agencies on large hiring efforts. To quickly onboard employees for critical needs, DCHR classified needed position descriptions, attended over 15 suitability events across the city, and completed suitability checks for over 1,500 applicants. DCHR assisted agencies with onboarding new employees, including hosting dedicated new employee orientations. Building on the momentum of our 2025 initiatives, we will deepen our commitment in FY26 by continuing to expand recruitment and visibility, scaling our talent partnerships, and optimizing the applicant experience to ensure the district government remains a premier career destination for all residents. DCHR remains steadfast in our commitment to cultivating a thriving, resilient, and highly skilled district government workforce through upskilling and holistic wellness support. Training and development are the engines of organizational growth. By investing in continuous learning, we empower our employees to sharpen their skills, embrace new challenges, and build sustainable, rewarding careers. In February of 2025, DCHR hosted a week-long continuing education session for managers called MSS Week. This week-long session allowed managers to meet their annual learning requirements, enhance their managerial skills, stay up to date on current policies and practices, and promote their professional growth. Over 1,032 employees registered for MSS Week, and 92.5% of participants who provided feedback reported satisfaction with the Manager Week experience. Based on the success of MSS Week, DCHR facilitated agency-specific manager training opportunities that were tailored to the specific needs of the agency. Learning from the successes of MSS Week, DCHR is currently planning FY26's MSS Week, which will include new courses that focus on managers' knowledge of key human resource processes, including classification and FMLA. DCHR introduced over 20 new courses in FY25 that focus on critical in-demand skills, including public speaking, critical thinking, project management, and change management. Select new courses include resilience and system thinking, effective presentations, critical thinking and problem solving, and project management parts 1 and 2. Over 500 employees attended these new courses and provided tangible feedback and insights as DCHR plans its FY26 training catalog. Our Certified Public Manager program, in partnership with the George Washington University, continues to be a nationally recognized initiative. The CPM program equips public sector professionals with the skills and capacities needed to lead effectively, drive innovation, and deliver high-impact results across government agencies. In September of 2025, we proudly celebrated the graduation of our 37th cohort and the launch of cohort 38. DCHR invests in employees' personal growth as much as we do in their professional growth. I'm immensely proud to talk about the continued success and recognition of our wellness program and offerings. For several consecutive years, we achieved gold for the Aetna Workplace Wellbeing Award. However, we never stopped looking for new ways to improve our program or wavered from our commitment to employee health. In 2025, our dedication resulted in us receiving the Platinum Workplace Wellbeing Award. This recognition confirms that the tools and support we provide are among the best in the country, and I encourage all employees to participate in what we have to offer. Our physical fitness challenges throughout the year give employees a fun way to push themselves to be more physically active while connecting with their coworkers and earning rewards for achieving fitness milestones. In February of 2025, we saw 804 employees participate in the Renew Challenge. In March of 2025, 1,059 employees registered to participate in the 4-week Spring into Motion Challenge, where participants track their fitness activity and have access to community-oriented resources and tools. This momentum carried into April and May of 2025, when 880 district government employees participated in the biometric screening process to assess key health indicators such as cholesterol, blood glucose, blood pressure, and body composition, and receive tips on improving their overall health and wellness. In the summer, a total of 1,166 employees from 67 agencies participated in our sci-fi themed Star Trek Wellness Challenge. Our employees logged more than 268 million steps, totaling over 650,000 minutes of physical activity. Our Walktober Challenge in the fall saw 2,409 participants. And during this time, we also hosted flu shot clinics to reduce the spread of seasonal influenza and support a healthier, more resilient workforce. 8 flu shot clinics were set up at various district locations and provided approximately 1,360 vaccinations. These are just a fraction of the wellness program events that we have. Our other programs include Financially Fit DC, where employees participate in a comprehensive suite of financial education sessions, get personalized consultations, and well-curated resources designed to promote financial literacy and long-term economic well-being. We also offer multiple webinars throughout the year on mental health, health literacy, nutrition, preventative care, and much more. I encourage all employees to check the DCHR's wellness calendar for a full list of our events, and I look forward to your participation in 2026. Sustaining the district government's success requires strategic HR professionals to implement modern HR solutions. The city's HR professionals play a significant role in DCHR's and the district's workforce accomplishments. To ensure HR professionals have the knowledge, skills, and resources to be successful, DCHR continued our monthly human resource advisors meetings to include hands-on training and breakout sessions. During these sessions, the HR community learns from one another and brainstorms ways to enhance processes, examining practical real-world case studies based on district personnel regulations. These sessions facilitate the sharing of best practices across HR teams from different agencies. And DCHR also hosted full-day trainings and brown bag sessions to enhance skills and foster knowledge sharing for sexual harassment officers across the district. To provide additional HR development opportunities, DCHR held a 2-day HR summit in October of 2025, which drew over 150 HR advisors from across the district. HR professionals were able to learn, collaborate, and network through a curated mix of panel discussions, interactive workshops, and peer-to-peer learning labs. DCHR received overwhelming positive feedback from attendees who praised the summit's relevance, energy, and opportunity to connect with peers about shared challenges and bold ideas. Based on feedback during a listening session at the HR Summit, DCHR rolled out 5 working groups across the HR community focused on best practices in hiring, workforce planning, communications, employee relations or leave, and HR training. Based on the success of the event, DCHR plans to host an HR Summit again this fiscal year. We want to ensure that our HR professionals have what they need to manage our workforce, and as such, DCHR worked collaboratively with agencies to better understand what tools and resources they need. Equipped with this information, DCHR will be launching the HR Foundations training in March of 2026 and implementing a new employee orientation for human resource professionals. Foundational training will be supplemented with dedicated training for in-demand topics such as managing short and long-term disability, understanding retirement plans, and facilitating effective one-on-one conversations. With this multifaceted approach, DCHR will continue to equip the HR community to successfully manage human resources in a quickly evolving landscape. In closing, our achievements in FY25 serve as a strong foundation for the work ahead. By remaining steadfast in our commitment to our residents, employees, and HR professionals, we continue to build a more resilient and innovative government workforce. I extend my gratitude to Mayor Bowser for her leadership and for the privilege of serving our city's workforce. I want to thank you, Chairperson Bonds, the committee, and your council colleagues and staff for your support of the DC Department of Human Resources. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this afternoon. This concludes my testimony, and I welcome any questions that you might have.
Thank you so very much for that testimony, and kudos to you and your team for your, I consider, outstanding opportunities that you provide to our workforce through your, particularly your wellness and health programs. Just this morning, I made a copy of a couple of things that you have published. One thing for sure, if we do not see a doctor, we can always talk to our HR office and get some advice. I think it's, what is it, 5 things for taking care of your heart or something like that this morning. Nuts were number 1. Made me grab my little pouch and take a few, but seriously, it's great. And we appreciate that so very much. And congratulations on your Workplace Wellbeing Award. That's tremendous. I just want all of our employees to feel that they're part of your league. And I know that you pump this information out, but I know that those agencies that are subordinate to the mayor are the ones that you primarily get to talk with regularly. So my question is, for those independent agencies, do they participate, and what do they participate in?
Are you referring to our wellness or?
Just in general,
across the board?
in the various services that your agency provides.
So there are some agencies that are independent that do participate. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Are you
Do
looking
all of
for?
them participate?
All of them do not participate.
Okay.
Similarly, all of the agencies under the mayor's personnel authority do not participate. And some of it could be scheduling. It could be based on the number of staff that they have, they may not be able to send someone to one of those trainings. So there are opportunities, however, to receive the information via email. So after our HRA meeting, for instance, we do send that presentation out to everyone who's on the HRA list.
All right, so your advisors' monthly meetings, is that a mandatory participation of the HR professionals in each of the agencies?
At the moment, it is not mandatory. It is voluntary. And what we've seen some agencies do is based on the workload that they may be dealing with, they may rotate who they send to those meetings. And so one person will attend 1 month, another month, and then they'll bring the information back. Again, if persons are on the HRA mailing list for our email listserv, they'll get the presentation and the information that was shared during that meeting via email.
Okay, all right. Well, we've had conversations before, and you shared with me information previously. I think this is from 2024, where you indicated the family, parental, and individual leave. Okay, all right, that's what I'm talking about. And we talked about the use of PeopleSoft and what have you. Please update me now on what happens with our workforce as it relates to participation in family leave, as an example.
Sure. So what an employee would do is if they are in need of FMLA or PFL, they would submit that request via PeopleSoft. In each of the agencies, there's someone identified to actually review the submission from the employee. And subsequent to reviewing it, there are a couple of things that could happen. If the packet is complete, then the agency representative will be able to forward it to our Employee Relations Department in DCHR, and they will review and give a final approval. If the packet that was submitted is not completed, then what will happen is the agency representative will follow up with the employee and request from them the requisite information that's needed in order to complete the packet. And then they would review, approve, and similarly, they would send it to DCHR for final approval.
Okay, for the family leave, I'm seeing that MPD probably has the highest number.
Mhm.
FY24, you have that you submitted previously, followed by FEMS, Fire Emergency Medical Services, followed by Department of Human Services, then OSSI, and primarily, I think you indicated at the time, it was OSSI's bus
Transportation. Yeah.
transportation system, and then followed by Department of Behavioral Health. We're talking about the same
Yes, ma'am.
paper? Okay, all right. And then the Department of Public Works and the DDOT. Okay. Those agencies that I just mentioned, are they all agencies that are subordinate to the mayor, or did I mention one that's independent?
They are all so they are all under the mayor's authority.
Yes.
However, there are several in there that you named that have their own personnel authority.
And
So-
which are they?
So that would be MPD and DBH.
Okay. All right. Number 1 and number 5 on our list, in other words, but the others come through your personnel process.
Yes, you didn't mention DCPS, right? I don't think DCPS.
No, did not.
Okay.
Public schools, interestingly enough, I guess they have their own personnel authority.
They do, and their own system, so they're not entering into PeopleSoft.
Okay. So then how do we ever know how many employees apply for in total out of all of our 35,000 employees? How do we ever know how many are really applying for these leaves? Only when the leave office gives a report, but it doesn't come to you directly, although all 6 administrations report to you. I'm trying to understand how we gathered the information.
Yeah, understood. So if they're using PeopleSoft, we would be able to run a report based on the code for leave. So we would be able to tell that way. What would be missing is the information from DCPS, since they do not use PeopleSoft. So we would be able to ask them for a report. I'm sure that most likely they have a code as well that represents leave and FMLA that they would be able to run a report on.
All right, can we get from you within 10 days, please, sir, the agencies that do not use PeopleSoft?
Yes.
And then we also would like to know update this report for FY25. And if you could indicate those agencies' use of family leave.
Okay.
The chart that I have that you submitted shows family, parental, and self. So if you want to go this far, we would love to have it.
Got
It will help us to understand what's going on in our government. And because, as you said, this is based on PeopleSoft. And we know that, well, we just know that there are agencies, large agencies do not use PeopleSoft, but how do we count what they're doing? And that's one of my concerns about how do we consolidate human resource needs in our government. Someone needs to know the bottom line, and it should not be that we have to come to you and then maybe 7 or 8 additional entities.
Yeah.
DC
understood.
Water, public schools, I guess is DDOT,
Yes, ma'am.
they're with you now.
Yes, they have been.
Okay,
They-
because at
the
one
entire-
time, yes,
Yes.
they were not. Okay, under that full authority. Okay. And MPD,
MPD is not under our personnel authority.
okay. But you have a report here for FY24 showing 384 family, but they do use PeopleSoft.
That's correct. Yes,
That's
ma'am.
the key.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
So I was asking the right question. Thank you. I'm very curious about 2 things. One, the number of new hires that were former federal employees. Do you have that number? That would be in FY 2025, I guess.
I don't have that number with me today, and I'm not sure if we'd be able to collect that information based on what you enter into your application.
Well, they would say their former, have some history that would show that they left US transportation or something that's under the federal system, correct? No?
So are you referring to if they were a former federal government employee?
Yes. You mentioned in your testimony
Mhm.
that the goal was, and you've held job fairs, a number of people that formerly federal employees
Right.
are now with the district government. And I'm just trying to inquire as to how many.
Yeah, I don't know if we have that information. A lot of the knowledge of knowing that we were getting federal government or former federal government employees was basically on talking to people. And then when we would interview, of course, they would share that information. I'm not sure if it is something that we capture in PeopleSoft, but what we can do is look and see if there's a way for us to get that information and provide an estimate to you.
Well, I think, consider that important. And I consider it important because we know that federal jobs in the District of Columbia are very plentiful. We know that a number of federal employees lost those jobs, but we also know that the district's residency was minuscule in comparison to all of the jobs. In other words, we did not have the DC residents did not have the lion's share of those jobs. And so I would like to know what happened to DC residents that were federally employed, that lost their jobs, and how much attention we, the local government, have given to making sure that those individuals, those are our people. What did we do to help them? That's where I'm coming from. And I'm going to be very intense about this because that is a goal of our government. That is a goal of our community, to make sure that our residents have jobs.
Yes.
So that's what concerns me. And I know that there's a lot of talent out there, but there's talent perhaps we haven't discovered that happen to be residents in the District of Columbia. And so I'm really concerned about the treatment that we're giving to DC residents. It is not all these beginning stages of employment. We have individuals that have worked for years in other jobs that also should be considered.
Yes, ma'am. I don't disagree at all. I would note that there are a couple of factors that would have impeded our being able to hire, one, a substantial number of former federal government employees. Keeping in mind that shortly after our March event, we then sort of moved into a hiring freeze as a result of congressional actions. And so that definitely took a toll on our ability to hire. Also, the other thing I would note is
that lifted the hiring freeze
towards the end of last year.
Yeah.
So there was a good portion
after September 30th is what
Yes.
you're implying. Yeah.
Yeah. The other factor that I would note is that the district typically doesn't carry a large number of vacancies. So even with the substantial number of persons who are looking for work, we don't have enough vacancies to absorb even half of that number.
Okay. And I do recognize that. And I also recognize that we're already 35,000 employees as a district government,
Yes.
managing $22 billion worth of money. That's how the community speaks to me about these matters.
Yes.
They don't see anything else,
I understand.
So, okay. the training that you provide and opportunities to our workforce, you mentioned that 1,032 have gone through the training, I believe, that allows managers to meet their learning requirement.
Mhm.
Okay, so 1,032, what percent is that of all of our managers?
Good question. So we in MSS, our manager supervisory positions, we have about 2,500 persons. The exact number, I believe, is about 2,509.
Okay, but it is not mandatory that they participate.
It is not mandatory that they participate. However, we are glad to see that there's a significant number of persons who
All
are
right.
participating.
Are there any subject matters that should be mandatory where our managers should participate?
Yeah, I mean, I will always be an advocate for managers attending anything that's going to help them be a better manager of people. It's one thing to manage work. It is something completely different to manage people. And anything that we can leverage to help support the development of our managers, to help them be better people managers and process managers, I would encourage them to attend. This year, we're going to focus a little bit more on the human resource portion of it. So one-on-one meetings, making sure that you're having regular checkups, check-ins with your employees, having stay conversations so that you can ensure that you are informing the people who are performing well, one, that you acknowledge it, and two, that you want to retain them to the best of your ability. If not on your team, then maybe somewhere else in the government. Also, as we talked about in the testimony, FMLA, we want to make sure that people are aware of how you engage with persons. Emotional intelligence is important. So all of those things, I would advocate for managers to always attend those. But right now, are any of them mandatory? The answer is no.
All right. Do you offer certificate-based training
For managers?
for managers or for any employee?
So,
My thinking is that we have a preponderance of universities here,
mhm.
and just wondered if we work in conjunction with some of the universities to offer training, which could lead to, credits
Yep.
towards, thinking about how do we get people on board? When I say mandatory, I'm thinking mandatory because you want to move up. Mandatory because you are in this field and every 3 years you need a refresher, those kinds of things.
So we do have the Certified Public Manager program, which you get a certificate at the conclusion of that. Also, what I would note is, and that's with George Washington University, we've also began connecting with UDC on various programs that they have that we believe might be helpful for our employees. So we're going to work with them to try to get those trainings out to our employees so that they can start participating in those. So to your point, yes, we understand that, and we're working to ensure that those
All right.
partnerships are established.
I'm thinking also about Trinity and the fact that they educate a lot of our teachers.
Mm.
And if you would look into that, it would be very helpful, I believe.
Sure. I will make sure I follow up with my counterpart at DCPS just to see if they can work with Trinity for teacher recruitment.
So does that mean that you would consider putting together a task force where you work with the universities to see just what we can offer to our workforce in the way of education enrichment?
We're definitely open to finding new ways to establish partnerships. So whatever we can do to ensure that our employees have access to courses that might be at Trinity or UDC or at Howard, any of our
Yeah.
colleges and universities, we're open to that.
Well,
And
Howard has, of course, you know, an outstanding social work program.
that's correct,
So-
yes.
So
And-
you're going to explore these things.
We are, and one of the
Okay.
things that we're pushing is through our public service initiative, we're actually trying to shift the approach as it relates to recruitment. So what we're doing is going to high schools, colleges, universities, trade schools, and getting in front of them to say, hey, have you ever considered a job in public service and working for DC government, as opposed to waiting for people to come to a career fair? If we can get in front of an economics class and start talking to them about the work that OCP does or OCFO does, those sorts of things, to sort of plant the seed in people's minds that district government is a place where we want our residents and our students to work and to stay, that's at the forefront of what we're trying to do.
So have you developed a full-blown plan of how you're going to approach our young people in, let's say, our public and charter schools?
So we've started a plan. What we did do was we reached out to the Deputy Mayor for Education and started having conversations with him and his staff. We've also reached out to DCPS and started having conversations with them about their career and technology courses. How can we fold into that and get in front of those students? So we have started those conversations.
All right. And would you also put on your list the Workforce Investment Council, which is designed to be our state conduit for bringing the various workforce disciplines together and identifying jobs and the jobs need for the future, for the present, and therefore sounds to me like that might be something you would want to do. I just think we need to give workforce a little more attention than we have. We have this huge project. Everyone talks about it, RFK, 16,000 jobs, but there are other jobs every day that occur in our community. And different entities are engaged in it. We, the government, make these projects possible, but we don't seem to get involved in pulling our people into the situations.
Got it. Understood.
So, just curious. Okay. Okay. Director Hall, let me ask you, do you do surveys with directors as it relates to the types of offerings that they feel your agency should produce to inspire, capture attention of employees? Just wondered.
Like employee surveys.
Well, thinking about, you know, I run whatever, an agency. And as such, my employees are knee deep into renewable energy, as an example. Would you, and as such, they're very curious about how to relay that message to the public, that it's a good thing. So would you, so when you talk to me, I might say, well, my employees need to learn how to go out and deliver a message. You can call it public speaking. I'm calling it, how do you really build trust with the public, as an example? Do you think that that would be something helpful, hearing from the departments to know what they think the need may be, from what from their vantage and from what their employees are telling them?
Sure. Yes, and I have scheduled check-ins with directors to find out how we can help them, how we can better support. If there are areas where DCHR may be lacking that we need to, step it up, as well as how their employees are doing. So we do have those. I've never done a survey per se, but have had constant conversations with directors as it relates to their workforce.
All right. Thank you. Let's talk a little bit about the DC Auditor's report that concluded that our government job application websites are extremely fragmented and in need of design upgrades. Have you found that to be the case? It mentions your agency, public schools, MPD, Office of the, let's see, UDC, DC Housing Authority. Looks like most of these are independent of your authority, but nevertheless, it's all cited. And that's why I'm saying we need to understand this relationship that you have or do not have with these agencies, because when we say the Department of Human Resources, that's everybody, but you do not have direct authority with everyone.
That's correct. As it relates to the DC auditor's assessment of the application sites, we would agree that it is fragmented, and I think that that's a shared thought in the government. And we've been working with Octo, who we believe is very diligent and intentional about finding a way to consolidate those, keeping in mind that, of course, DCPS uses a different system, so that might be challenging as it relates to the application process. But we also know that as we've been looking into a different applicant tracking system, it is very expensive. And so that is a challenge that we face as well.
Okay. In fact, the auditor found that 44% of the employees that are under your personnel authority, that seems like a fairly small scope of authority. Back to my concern all the time. So what is your perspective on the role that you should be playing in guiding the policy? Or are you comfortable? Do you have as much on your plate as you could possibly handle? Am I sort of pushing the leaves under the wrong rock? What's going on?
So our collaboration with various agencies differ depending on who it is. So I do think that we have had good partnerships with MPD and DCPS. There are certain policies that they still will adhere to and follow. There are some independent agencies that don't necessarily follow the policies that we might outline. There are independent agencies that establish MOUs with us for HR support. And so whether it's recruitment or if it's, I'm trying to think, like professional development, those sorts of things that they want assistance with, then they're actually establishing connections with us. The MOU will actually outline what services they'll receive from DCHR. And then, of course, as we mentioned earlier, our CLD team provides a plethora of professional development opportunities that they're able to participate in. So I think that what I would say is we work well based on the system that we've been provided.
Okay. I hear you. But if law says you operate differently, you would do that? You would abide by the law?
I will always abide by the law.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Just want to make sure. Okay. Let's talk a little bit about paid leave. And I want to start with, I guess we'll start with the agency noted that 633 employees used paid family and medical leave in 2025 that are no longer active employees. Can you help me understand why this may be the case as it has impacted the government? In other words, what do you see this situation contributing to? Immediately, I'm thinking that individuals took their leave, they knew they were planning on leaving, and then they exit the government. And so how can we stopgate that fragrant use of family leave?
Excellent question.
Or
So,
should we?
we're very generous in the way that we approach leave. So, as you noted previously, one of the hearings that we had on legislation related to PFL would actually establish a continuing service agreement for persons who are not in their probationary period. The current structure only applies that continuing service agreement to persons who are in their probationary period. So that would address some of it. Now, the factors that led up to it, it could vary. And so I don't know that we have enough information to know why. Some of it could be, as you said, they came in, they got their leave, they were going to, move and go somewhere else anyway, but they decided to sort of ride this out. It could also be that their health condition was so poor that maybe they needed to look into whether or not they were going to apply for disability or retire. So I think that there could be several factors that play a part in it. But to your point about how can we remedy this, by having a continuation of service agreement put in place, that would help remedy it.
All right. I'm going to suggest that we form a working group to look at leave. You made a point of saying we're very generous in the approach to leave. And we are. But I'm wondering if we need to think about leave more holistically, particularly given where our government is and maybe into the future. The current federal administration certainly has its ideas as to what the District of Columbia is as a federal jurisdiction. And our hopes of always becoming a state may not materialize for some time. So how do we, who do not raise corn, how do we support ourselves? How do we continue to be a government, a somewhat independent government? Those are the questions that, come to mind. And I think maybe if we have a workforce or task group, maybe with risk management, MOLC, and a few others, we need to start thinking about how do we do this. And I'm not suggesting that we would not have leave. I'm simply suggesting that these are all policies that we put in place in the course of the government. So now the government should have the authority to look at these policies and figure out how do we move forward into the future and at what cost.
Yes, and that some of those suggestions are captured in Bill 26-0326, which would shift some of the current PFL offerings. As you know, it would change the leave period to care for a family member with a serious health condition from 8 weeks to 2 weeks. It would further help to sort of narrow the scope on the eligible family members for whom you could utilize the leave. So I think that there's a good start there that we have, but we're always open to partnering to figure out other ways to address this issue.
All right, well, I appreciate that. Can you wrap this up by explaining what employee supports are available when an employee must take emergency leave for a qualifying event, submitted an application, but did not receive your approval beforehand, your being the agency's approval beforehand?
Sure. So if an employee has applied for FMLA and they have not received the response as of yet, FMLA can be backdated. So regardless of when you submitted it and when you take the leave, it can always be backdated to the date that your serious health condition was actually identified, or if you had to have surgery, or you are pregnant and you go into early labor, all of those sorts of things, it can be retroed back. So they don't necessarily have to have the approval at the time when they go out. They just need to make sure that it is a qualifying event under FMLA, and that will be verified again on the agency level first. You'll submit that information to your agency representative. They will review the information. They will approve it and send it to DCHR for final approval. And then you would receive the approval in PeopleSoft. But it can be retroed. So even if you don't have it the day that you go out, as long as it is an FMLA eligible condition, the approval will come and it can be backdated.
And what does the employee do when it's discovered that they've been waiting and waiting, and it's because the paperwork was lost?
Yes. So it's in PeopleSoft, so hopefully it's not necessarily lost. If there
What
is
if
a
it's
delay,
not? What if it never got in PeopleSoft?
then we would need to start with the employee to find out how they submitted it, because they should submit it via PeopleSoft. If they're seeing a delay, the first place they want to start is with their agency representative. And then they can also follow up with DCHR as well. I know that we do a good job of staying on top of things, but of course, like everyone else, we make mistakes and have things that we can improve on as well. So I would say start with your agency. If it's not with your agency, following up with DCHR is always an appropriate next step.
All right, well, thank you very much for that. Let's see. Well, I have about 15 more questions, but I think we've covered most of them. Let me, in strengthening the workforce, can you talk to us a minute about Work for America partnership? And then there are a couple of other items here.
Sure. So Work for America is a nonprofit organization that specializes in assisting and supporting persons who were in the federal workforce or who are interested in working in public service. And so what we did was we connected with them to ensure that when we have positions, that we can actually post various positions on their website, which would highlight, of course, the position itself, as well as working in district government. This gives the district additional visibility. So it's not just on our website. It's not just on LinkedIn. It's also on a website that is published across America, and persons who would be interested in coming to work for DC government would be able to see it there. They also have allowed us to post our events. So when we have events, that visibility goes beyond what DCHR publishes on our website or social media. It also will reflect on the Work for America website. Additionally, we're able to go in and see the resumes of persons who have applied or submitted their information on the Work for America website. And if we see that there's a good match there, that gives us an opportunity similar to what we can do on LinkedIn, where we could actually reach out to that person and let them know that we have a position that we believe may be fitting or a good fit for them.
Would DC residents be able to use this website to post their resume as well?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to
Yeah.
make clear to the public that they can.
Now, just so that everybody is aware, there are certain positions that Work for America will not post. So if it's like, if someone wanted to be a bus driver for OSSI DDOT, that may not show up on the Work for America website. So it is, I would say, somewhat limited in scope as it relates to the types of positions you'll find posted on Work for America.
Okay. So out of curiosity, where should someone who has the credentials go to work for OSSI for the bus service? Where do they go?
Yep, excellent question. So they can go to careers.dc.gov, and that's where you'll find positions available in the district government.
All right. Thank you. Even the union positions, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Earlier, we had a public testimony about requesting that persons with disabilities be factored into the workforce. What do you think about that, and how can we make that happen? Or is there a need for that from at the higher level?
So I think that the district does a great job of ensuring that we are an equal opportunity employer. And so I think that as it relates to persons with disabilities, there is not, to my knowledge, any hindrance of ensuring that those persons have adequate opportunity to apply and even be hired into positions here in the district. What I would flag is keeping in mind a couple of things. Number one, a disability doesn't have to be disclosed to an employer. And so you may not always have a visible disability. So the district could have far greater number of people with disabilities working for it at the moment who have never disclosed, and it's not visible. So I would definitely flag that for us to keep in mind as well.
Thank you. I appreciate your response, and thank you. Talk to the Department of Disabilities Rights and see what they have to say. Just 1 second.
Sure.
Well, one of my big concerns is how do we classify our employees? Because across agencies, individuals may be doing desk work, answering the phone, receiving visitors, keeping track of paperwork that comes in and out of the office, including mail. But you can go to 5 different agencies and they're classified differently. So classification is always something I'm concerned with, and wonder why we do not have uniformity. What can be done? Or do you think uniformity is even needed? Back in the day, we did a desk audit, but that was when employees were maybe 5,000. Now you're talking about, 5 times that. So just wondered.
Yeah, so we still currently do desk audits.
You do?
Yes, ma'am. So, and despite the increase in number of employees, that is still an opportunity that an employee has at their disposal that they can utilize. So if an employee would like to have a desk audit conducted, they can have a conversation with their manager. The manager can assist with getting that information to us. We'll do a review of the position description, and we will provide a determination, keeping in mind that there are times when there may be no change. There also may be a time when the change says, well, this should be classified at a higher level, or it could also come back and say this should be classified at a lower level. But desk audits are still conducted at DCHR and are readily available for employees to utilize.
Okay. All right, well, we probably will have more questions about classification that we'll send to you.
Okay.
Because we get those kinds of questions, as you can imagine.
Yes, ma'am.
You know, and I think I mentioned to OEA about one situation, you know, that more recent, and so we get those questions.
Mhm.
And there is no uniformity throughout our government, so it makes it very hard.
Yeah, and the position description may be different, even though they share the same or similar responsibilities. There could be some variance that then is what determines how one person is classified versus another. And also keeping in mind that the way that our agencies operate is different. So what one agency needs from a program analyst could be something different than another agency. And that creates some, I don't want to say disparities, I would say differences in the way that the position is classified. But again, managers can always reach out, employees can always reach out. We can look at the position description with them, review the scope of work, and let them know if this needs to be reclassified or if it's classified correctly.
So if there was a law that managers needed to clarify the positions under their quote unquote command, and that information was sent to your agency, would you then be able to craft some uniform protocol or standards that we would use to be classified at this, that, or the other level? Like in the council, I think we have level 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Do you have that in?
Yes, ma'am. So we have
Okay.
grade and step already in
Okay.
place.
Okay, and then you
Um,
have step, okay.
Right, and it's based on the OPM standards that the federal government uses. So that's the
Okay.
classification
Okay,
standards that we use.
all right. So it's no longer those DS.
No.
Okay, it's just levels now.
Yes, we
All
have
right,
graded
okay.
step. And then we have, of course, career service, management supervisory, those different categories as well.
Yes, all right. Yep, legal, executive, accepted, educational, and then career.
Yes.
And most of our employees are in career
Yeah.
service.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you for that. And it's my assumption from previous conversations that the onboarding of employees is done by the agency with assistance from you for those agencies that you have an MOU with and that are subordinate to the mayor. Am I correct?
So I would make a distinction
Okay.
that DCHR conducts the new hire orientation. So employees as they're first coming on will go through that orientation. Onboarding as a practice would take place at the agency, which is, making sure that the person's workspace is set up, making sure that they have opportunity to meet the colleagues and the team that they'll be working with, ensuring that they're aware of and review their position description and expectations as it relates to their job, setting SMART goals. Those sorts of things would be part of the onboarding process. that DCHR would not directly be involved in, but we will make sure that the new hire or the new employee is oriented into the government.
All right, but you do not do orientation for all of the employees that are in our government. Am I correct?
So we would not for DCPS, we would not for MPD.
DC Water, what
No,
have you?
ma'am.
Okay. All right. Now, for the exiting of an employee, is that the situation remains the same?
So they could have an exit interview with their agency. They could request one with DCHR. I don't know how often that happens, but they can request an exit interview with someone in their HR team at their agency or with their manager.
And ultimately, the paperwork comes to your shop.
That's correct.
You have all paperwork.
We would hope that everyone who has been separated from the district, we have all of their
Okay,
paperwork.
even DC Water.
Not DC Water,
Oh,
not persons that we don't have personnel.
that's part of DC government, Mr. Hall. It's still part of the government.
Got it. So the ones who are under the
When
mayor's.
we created it, it
authority.
was a part of DC government.
Gotcha.
All right.
So we won't have all of them. We hope to have everyone who is under the mayor's personnel authority, which does not include DCPS, DBH, or MPD, because we don't have personnel authority over those agencies.
All right, so let's see, question 72, page 38, classification inquiries, where you list the grand total of 38,555 employees. That includes everyone. DC Water as well, right?
I don't think that DC Water is included in that number.
Well, so now, this is very important.
Mhm.
We're saying that we have 38,555 employees that are under the mayor's authority, is what you're telling me.
Mhm.
That's what this is. This does not include public schools, DC Water. Does it include the university?
No, ma'am. These are agencies who use PeopleSoft. And so DC Water would not be.
What you're telling me is that 38,555, to that, I probably need to add easily another 10,000. Do you see where I'm headed?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, these are only the persons in PeopleSoft under our personnel authority. And as you know, this is not a decision that we made. This was, I believe, implemented through the council.
Oh, no, I understand all that. But you're also telling me that if we were able to consolidate all of that into the Department of Human Resources, you would take on an additional easily 200 employees. Do you have the space for it?
You mean an additional 200 HR personnel?
Mhm.
So in our current space, no, we do not have space for
Okay.
200 additional.
But you could do a remote. They could be in other places, but under your thumb.
So similar to what OCP does, where persons may sit in agencies, it would have to be that way because we simply do not have space at DCHR.
All right. But it can be done.
It can be done.
All right. I appreciate that. And would it require different or an enhanced IT?
As far as
New computer system for capturing all of that? Can your system, your PeopleSoft expand?
So that would be a question for Director Miller for sure, because I'm not an expert on PeopleSoft. And we're all currently, everyone who works in HR currently, now there's a access that they have to PeopleSoft. Not everyone may have that same access, but Director Miller would be best positioned to talk to us about any expansions or the capacity of PeopleSoft.
All right. It's coming. So when I look at the 927,276.5 hours of paid family and medical leave used October 1 through January 22nd of this year, 2026, it does not include independent agencies, right? Only those agencies that we discussed earlier that you reported on from 2024? Or you will let me know what
Anyone who
agencies?
uses PeopleSoft. So DC Water would not be in there.
Uh-huh,
DCPS would not be in there.
uh-huh.
Housing Authority would not be included. So it's only those persons who use PeopleSoft.
Okay. So we really don't have a way of calculating how much leave is used by district government employees. And we just discovered that we probably have close to 50,000 as opposed to 37,000. Wow.
Yes, so it is not
We-
capturing
yes.
the total number.
Yes, we're definitely several villages. Okay. I just want people to feel the impact of what this enterprise, because that's what it is. We're not as big as Amazon, though, are we? We're not as big as Amazon. I forget.
I don't exactly know how big Amazon is. They've been
Oh, the
doing
tr-
some layoffs lately, so I'm not sure
I know.
how big they are anymore.
I know. I know. Thank you very much. Oh, goodness. And I think everyone is up to date on, general leave and what have you. So that's not, but yes, I would like to know how much sick leave is generally earned by our 38,555 employees, on a annual basis and a monthly basis. That would, I think that helps put in perspective who we are and how we run this government.
Mhm. Yeah, so a couple of things. One, so accepted service and executive service would not earn sick. We receive what's called universal leave, so it's all in one bucket for us. For persons who are not in those categories, they would earn 4 hours of sick leave per pay period. And that you would see that on your pay stub. Each time our pay comes out, you would be able to look into PeopleSoft and see that on your pay stub.
But career, educational, legal, and MSS earn leave.
They're earning at 4 hours of sick leave per pay
Okay.
period.
Okay. Thank you. And then there are others that are earning something,
So,
that 10,000 or 12,000 somewhere out there.
so for executive, we earn,
Oh, no, I'm not speaking of that. I'm speaking of your independent agencies that have those categories, classified categories of employees.
right, I wouldn't be able to speak to how the Housing Authority or how DC Water is accruing their leave.
Okay.
You know, because they operate under a different system.
All right. We'll work to get that information for you.
Gotcha.
You know, we do have the old subpoena process. It's called an investigation. I think this information is very important to understanding how we grow or how we function going into the future. That's the only reason I ask. And this being my last year is the only time I have to put the pedal to the floorboard.
Understood.
So, all right.
Yes.
Thank you very much. And then I wanted to ask you about retirement. How do we handle retirement? We talked about onboarding and then exiting. Would retirement be covered under exiting?
So retirement is, our benefits team does manage and assist with retirement for employees. They are able to schedule a meeting with someone on the retirement team
Right.
and discuss their retirement.
Yes, I've had someone from your team to do that. Thank you very, very much.
You're welcome.
Now, again, you keep records for all of retirements from DC government, including the independent agencies. No,
So
only PeopleSoft.
the persons who are currently working with the government, we would have their information. Now, if it precedes a certain date, then we would actually have to get that. It's put into storage. And so
Right.
those files, we would not have those, especially, I'm sure, prior to the time that we switched from the previous system into PeopleSoft, there's some information that we would have to gather.
And those employees after, I think, 1990, something like that, best I can remember.
I don't have the exact
Yeah,
date in my mind.
I have that. I'm
But
just,
yes.
yeah, okay. I predate that, as you obviously know. But my point is, all of the retirement information is in your office. Everyone who leaves,
We can request the information if
Yeah.
we need it, yes.
irrespective of the agency that you work for.
So
If you
with the-
received a DC government check,
If you receive a DC, so if you work for DC Water, you would not be coming to DCHR.
I got you. Okay. I just need you to put it on the record so we know where we're going.
Yes.
All right. I thank you so much. And as always, thank you very much. Thank you, Director Hall, and thank you to your entire team. And now that we know we're nearly 50,000 employees, my heavens, we got to manage that in some sort of way. But, you have AI, so, that's an easy thing now, right? That's what they say. As long as it doesn't take over like Hal did in that old movie, remember? Okay. But anyway, thank you very much for being here today.
Thank you.
And thank you to all of our witnesses today. We have learned that these agencies before us play a vital role in the operations of the district. And I hope those who watched have a better understanding of the work of these agencies and the work in general of our government. If the public has any additional thoughts or would like to submit written testimony regarding the performance of these agencies, please upload it to Hearing Management System at dccouncil.gov, or you may email it to seal@dccouncil.gov, and that's CEAL. The hearing record will close in 10 business days. That is February 18th at 5 p.m. And I urge everyone who is interested to submit testimony before the date so that it can be entered into the public record. The next performance oversight hearing of the committee will be tomorrow, February 5th, and we'll be hearing from public and government witnesses regarding the Workforce Investment Council and the Office of the Secretary, which will include records and the archives. And this concludes today's hearing. With that, the time is 1:45 p.m. on February the 4th, 2026, same day that we started. The meeting is adjourned. And again, thank you very much. Thank you.